Sweet. So what I've done to just, and we'll start off with a fresh project to kind of do an initial review of After Effects for anyone that is new here. They're just new in general to After Effects. I want to make sure that we go over some basic stuff, but this is a masterclass, and that just means that we'll be deep diving into a finished product of mine, and seeing all the little tools and functions that I use to make each element either move or otherwise generate. Um, the, there's all sorts of potential with After Effects that we were largely looking at this as a Photoshop with motion in terms of the logic of it. The almost all of the tools that are available in Photoshop are actually in After Effects as well, and that includes like blending modes and masking and just all sorts of other stuff. But it's been designed to work for video as opposed to still images. So part of what we're getting into is also just kind of uh, an understanding of where all the Photoshop elements are, so that you can just quickly hop into After Effects. For those streaming on Twitch, I'll mention that my name is Victor Gnarly, and I am a former visual effects artist for Adult Swim. I've worked on a bunch of shows, but I'm just excited to be doing stuff with you guys now and just making things here. And we're recording this all for YouTube, so you're more than welcome to chime in the chat or join our server and be in the room with us here. I'm joined with Legal Beagle, Bert, Fungi Mancer, Alistair, and Laura. Thank you guys so much for joining. Um, I'm stoked to kind of dig into this particular project because it's the last Sage comic that I made. But I also have as another project the April Fool's stop motion, which also was made in After Effects. So we'll be going over both of those projects and all the the bells and whistles that I put into it. If there's any issues with the stream, just chime in at any time. Don't worry about interrupting me, that kind of thing, guys. I would much rather fix any issues if we run into them before I have to go back into editing and rebalance all my audio because my microphone was too low or something like that. Okay, all right. So I will say that also on our server, under the Sage Comics, and I'll just point that out really quick. Do I have that open at all? No, no, it's okay. It's all good. Inside of the Gnarly Studio server, if you look for the Sage Comics channel, you will find the After Effects project for the Scan Beam, and also for the April Fool's project. But the April Fool's project is a gig. It's a big file. So because it includes all the footage and sound effects and Photoshop files, so it is something that I don't expect people to keep along with that one. So this Scan Beam I've removed from that project and made it its own project, so that it's a lot smaller of a download. It's less than 30 megs to download. So feel free to give that a download so that you can follow along. Let me also include the where is this file? I just had it here. Where is it? Um, I'll just go to recent, I guess. Yes, there it is. Recent. Share. Uh, anyone with a link. Okay. And copied. I'm going to also paste this in the Sage Comics, which is a download link to the April Fool's stop motion After Effects file. Project, file, and footage. Okay. That is now sent over. So you guys have all that stuff now. At this point, we're going to first go over, at least when it comes to uh, the how After Effects works. How we're able to bring AI generated images into uh, Adobe Suite programs like Photoshop, but also After Effects and Premiere. This all works within a single suite, so it means that I can very easily produce um, content by hopping between those programs. So we're only focusing on After Effects today, but at any point I can right click on any one of the either Adobe projects or PNGs and actually edit them in real time and just basically have all these files linked. So that's what I sent over on the server was by going to file and then collecting all the footage using dependencies and then collect files. That's how you basically share projects with people. But who joined? I just want to take a quick peek at that. Nixie, hi. Thanks for coming.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for having us.
No problem, no problem. Yeah, we're just getting started here. You can find if you do have After Effects on your computer, you can follow along by downloading the files on the Sage Comics channel. Um,
Okay, one.
yeah, the just know that the Google Drive link is massive. It's a 1 gig file, so don't worry about downloading that. I don't expect people to follow along with that one. It's more just to show people how I made a completed film with After Effects.
Okay. Okay, yeah, no, excited to see and play more. So thank you.
No problem, no problem. In fact, I should put a warning on that file link really quick and just say, warning, 1 gig file. Warning, 1 gig file. There we go. All right, cool. All right, let's actually get started here. So, when it comes to After Effects, we're basically looking at at 4 different windows here by default, and those windows are your main composition, your files and projects, your tools or your effects or any sort of manipulation of the uh, what is it of your uh, assets inside of your project is probably going to be over here. So, for example, if I am looking for a specific effect, I can go into the search under here for effects and presets, and we can find an effect that works for what we intend to do. And sometimes there are presets that really let us just immediately get what we want. As in, like, if I wanted to say, make this scene of the Sage in front of the scanner here, you can see that basically what happens in this moment is Sage is sitting in front of, or sorry, she falls asleep on top of the Xerox machine, and a beam crawls across her face. And the beam itself, as well as the what's inside the Xerox machine, is all After Effects. The zoom in and the golden bar at the end is actually Pika Labs. So we are combining both of those to make this animation here, and it is nested into 3 different compositions, which was made because as you start making stuff in After Effects, you'll learn that sometimes you need to have things in separate projects to time them correctly. So like for this one here, for this composition, I have the actual animation, and then I have a little lip at the end here, which is just a rewind or a reversal of the footage, because whenever you're making content for the internet that is intended to loop, like as a GIF, that actually is it's a far less jarring to have a little rewind moment like that. In fact, if we put like a little bit of like VHS rewind on this, it would look really good, right? Like it would just be like like seeing the scan lines of the VHS tape. I can't believe I didn't think of doing that. But yeah, we can easily incorporate stuff like that by applying a preset on top of this, just to show you guys how this stuff looks when we are applying effects and editing them. And then we'll get into each composition here because, like I said, these are nested things. So the only thing that this composition does is plays the video and then rewinds it at a much faster speed at the end here. So we have a couple different layers here that accomplish that. You'll notice there are 2 additional layers up here, and the only thing these two do is it's actually kind of funny. So if I look in here and we zoom in, you'll notice that there's a mask around her. And so to make it a little more obvious, I'll change the mask color by opening up the layer here, and then you see there are two masks. One of them is brown, one of them is green. Actually, no, there's four masks. My bad. Yellow and tan as well. But you'll see that those masks are a little bit hidden based on just the color tones of this comic, right? So I'm gonna make them a little more obvious really quick. Let's make this one purple. Let's make this one vibrant green. Let's make this one. Yeah, we can keep. Let's do red on this one, and then another contrasting color to the scene. Let's do. Um, yeah, let's do like a violet kind of color. Okay, all right. So if I now click at these masks, we can see them a lot more clearly because we've recolored them. And each mask accomplishes a specific task. The masks themselves are designed to isolate footage. So we essentially have uh, one part of the footage is being shown through, and another part of the footage is being blocked as layers. So if I now turn this off, so if you hit the little eyeball here on this layer, you're going to see why these masks exist. So if I turn that off, you can see that as I rewound the footage, the beam crawls across her face. Okay, and I can't. It just looked really awful when sped up. So I'll just play that for you guys really quick. Look at that. It just kind of slides in front of her face, and it just doesn't look very good in my opinion. I'll do it again so you guys can see it. Yeah, it's just this fast, swipe, and I didn't like that. So what I did was I created a duplicate of that rewind, but the key difference here is that I stopped the time on on the last frame. So you notice right here, there is a hold frame or a hold frame on the time itself. So like the frames, the time remapping here is how you control ramping of speed of your footage. And what I did here was I applied a hold frame so that this literally is just a still image now. It's a still image that has been rescaled and tracked to fit the size of the camera movement. If you notice here how when the camera zooms back out, she shrinks, right? Because this is a still image, now that means that I had to recreate the zoom, but only for what's inside of the mask. So just the top of her sitting here or laying here, and the beam that's in front of the Xerox machine. So the masks are, and you'll notice they say right here that one of them is subtract, one of them's add, another one's subtract, another one's add. The idea is that the add are providing the bounding box for it. That's why this one is the big one here. And then the subtract is what's actually being cut out of this frame. So we're going to do this on a fresh project, so it's a lot easier for you guys to see this in action. But I wanted to first explain why there is a composition on top of everything else we've done, and it's just to do the rewind. It's just to make the rewind here. So if we now double click into this composition here, you'll notice that now we have the next layer in to the project, which is let's see here. What did I do here? Oops, I gotta zoom out here. There we go. So this is where we are retiming the actual animation itself. So like I've done another hold frame at the beginning here. Yeah, I've done another hold frame here, just so that nothing happens at the beginning of the footage, and then we play this footage. So that's another nest here. The first one was a rewind at the end, and the last one, or sorry, the next layer in is just a hold frame at the beginning. Nothing that special with these, but now if I jump into this composition, we actually get the animation of the bar itself. So this was done with solids. And if I zoom in here again, you'll notice, again, we're just using masks. We're just using masks to create shapes, and then we're animating those shapes over our footage. So the two shapes that I have are a medium orange color which is the actual. Let's see here. I'll go in the middle here so it's more obvious. So if I turn this one on and off, you'll notice that this one is just the beam itself, like the bounding light that spreads off of it. And then I needed to create a core to that light, like basically the stronger parts of it, so that it had basically a really nice line that goes across her face. This was basically just me copying the same solid twice and then adjusting the color of it afterward. But the point is that we have this really feathered beam that comes across her face, and the way that that was animated was by creating masks and then animating those masks. So if we see inside of here, we have it looks like 10 different masks here, and those masks are done in order. So we start with the let's see here. We if we look at which one this is, this should be the primary beam. This shape here. I'll change the color of it so it's a little more obvious. Let's do purple. There you go. So it's this sort of ovular shape that's here. That's the very first mask. That is adding the solid color to this area. The second mask is the square underneath it. That is, recreating the translucent, like the see-through element of the Xerox machine. Which, by the way, no Xerox machine actually has this. It's just the light that bleeds in between a Xerox machine is so famous, right? Like if you have a Xerox machine that's closed, there's a beam of light in between the door and the actual machine. I needed to recreate that without actually doing that because she's sleeping on top of it, right? So this bar here acted as the as a purely narrative addition. It doesn't actually make sense in terms of what other Xerox machines look like, but it was necessary to convey the my intent of what's happening here. She's being scanned, that kind of thing. But the other masks that are all down here, outside of these two, there is let's see here. There is 2 or 3 masks that are just to cut out the light in certain places. So if you notice, as I scroll through the footage here, there is a mask above each one of her eyelids. 1 and then 2. That is to create shadow on her face as we cross over it. This little detail that's here, that little detail makes all the difference when it comes to making this feel like a real moment, that like a moment with intent. If I did not have those masks on, it just looks like a color that streams across her face. But yeah, so we got a lot done with just these little masks that track that are following her eyes. And you'll notice that if I open up any one of these masks, like let's do the first one here, I have a mask path, which is the movement from left to right across her face. That one is being done with keyframes. Like basically you can see here's the keyframe for when it reaches the midpoint of her face. And then I did another ramp here, just a little addition here, in order to make it feel more mechanical. I wanted it to not be a perfectly smooth left to right, because if you remember, like, I mean, think about it this way. These are mechanical devices from the 90s, and they're relying on belts and pulleys and other hardware to work. So in order to feel real, you have to think about those things. And so what I did here is I just staggered it a little bit here, as if there was maybe a little bit of gunk on the scanner belt, and the little flicker that happens at the beginning brings character and ominence to the moment itself. So all that stuff was done just by messing with the actual masks here. If I zoom in here and take a look, the only thing I'm adjusting is the opacity in order to make the flicker. Okay, so if I scroll through here, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. That's all done with opacity. Easy, easy. But here's the thing about this. The shapes by themselves will be very hard lines if you do not apply a feather to them. So almost all of these shapes have a feather, which is essentially how much blur there is both inside and outside the mask. So the feather right now is set to 44 pixels. That means that 22 pixels this way and 22 pixels this way is translucent. It has some gradient or fade between those. Knowing, like, getting your feathering just right is how you sell these things without putting too much work into it. It's that and blending modes that are really going to accelerate this significantly in terms of the look of these images here or these videos here. The other element outside of just solids that we have here, because if I double click this, by the way, you'll see that this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like without the sage, without sage in the background. So I'll just hit play on this so that you guys can see. That's where I've taken out parts of the light and also applied feathering. And the where I'm cutting things out has a different feather than what I'm doing for the light overall, because the light's bleeding around her head, but there's only very small crevices for her eyebrows and stuff. So the shadow should not bleed nearly as much on those as it does on the outer world. So that's why it looks like this. So, and if we scroll through with the mask visible, you can see what's happening here. We are essentially, and by the way, you see that little bit of lag? See how there's a little bit of a difference between these two functioning here? That's what I wanted to feel. I wanted to feel just like oddly a little bit off, just a little bit real in that way, a little bit imperfect. So now that we have an idea of these masks and what they're doing, we can then tweak the blending modes between them. So I have these two solids here. One blending mode is on add, and the other blending mode is on overlay. And the only thing that does is just affects what colors get adjusted by the golden color here. So we'll get into blending modes a little later, but if you do have experience with After Effects, if you do have experience with Photoshop, you're gonna know what blending modes are, and all of them apply to video, which is what kind of trips people out when the first time they get into After Effects is they realize that all those Photoshop skills can be transferred over to After Effects. So what at this point though, if I, we've opened this up, we've taken a look at this project. Let's see. Oop, let me double back here real quick. There you go. Okay. So we've taken a look at the three different nested layers of these compositions here. And it just basically did an overview of masking and blending modes. Um, so the second half of the class today, I will be opening up the April Fool's animation. But that is more about completing a film and less about individual tools and stuff. So we're going to start off fresh in order to get us a blank slate for you guys, and that way we can make something right here. We'll probably
Before
use Beagle Labs to do that. Go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off, but before you move on, can we have a couple questions?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Thank you. I didn't notice.
So-
Let's see.
No, I mean I have at
Okay.
least one, and I just at the transition feels like I want to make sure I understand what the masks are doing, because some of them look stationary and others are moving, but it's not each image the mask is, so it's not, the masks aren't doing aren't actually editing each frame. There's it's kind of overlaying and only the one is moving, but the one that's moving is indicating which of the other masks should be shown.
Yeah,
I'm just
basically,
trying to wrap my head.
yeah, absolutely. So basically, depending on which mode you select the mask on is going to dictate what that mask does. So if I hop ourselves into this really quick, and we take a look at, why is this showing me this? Hold on. Come on, show me my composition. There it is. Okay. So if I look at just the masks themselves, I'm just going to double click and look inside of this. the primary mask, the very first one, because it goes in order, as in like if I were to rearrange these masks, they would behave differently because there is essentially a process of whichever one's on top is actually slave to the one that's underneath it. So that means that if we have the first mask be our actual shape that we want, every mask underneath that is going to affect the mask that's above it. So that means, like, for example, this blue mask that's here, which is the fifth mask, the blue mask is actually just preventing the light from escaping or going all the way to the ceiling. And at least for the comic itself, I mean, the panel here, what it's doing is it's preventing the light from getting into the upper half of the frame here. So if I zoom back, up into here, if I didn't have that blue mask up here, there would be gold light up here. I didn't want that. So in order to what is it? In order to prevent that, we apply this mask and have it like here it is with the video overlaid with it. You can see that that blue is following the shape of her head, and the reason why it's animated, or sorry, this one doesn't need to be animated because it's pretty much hard locked into, like, she doesn't move that much, so I didn't need to animate those. But if we look at any one of the ones that move, they have the animation done ahead of time. So like we start with animating it, make sure it's the right motion, the right movement that we want, and then we add a mask and start finessing each part that we want to. There are 3 masks just on her face, so each eyebrow and her nose, but I ended up not liking the one that was on her nose, so the only thing I did was turn it off. If you notice here, if I mute these masks, the yellow mask is just set to none, so it doesn't do anything. I just didn't like it, so I turned it off. But all the other ones are subtracting from the solid layer or color that's here. If I go to, say, composition, layer, new, and then say solid, you select what color you want that solid to be. So in this case, we did like a yellowish orange color. I'll hit OK on that. And then once I hit OK, it's just going to fill the entire screen with that color. It is up to our masks to then start isolating parts of that color. So if I then draw a box over it, it's now been isolated to just this area. If I then take that box and now apply a feather to it, it will blur like that. And now if I take this layer and say, all right, let's have this square move in the frame, then I can just hit, I can go to the start of the timeline, the very beginning of it, and I can hit this clock here, or sorry, the stopwatch, which creates a keyframe. And now I can slide all the way across to the end of the footage and move this mask anywhere I want. Okay, so like I'll click on the mask and then grab a corner and just move it. And now, because I moved it, it created another keyframe as long as I was on a different frame. And now look what it does. It just keyframes from one position to another. But say I wanted to have this box disappear when it reaches the center of the screen and then reappear as it comes to the other corner. That means I need to now draw another mask. And the only thing I do for that is I just select the layer, I grab either the square tool or the pen tool, and then I will draw over this one. And you notice it just adds another box at first. But now, as long as it's underneath it, so we have one mask and then the mask we just made is underneath it, we can just say that this is a subtract instead of an add. And boom, it's disappeared. But now if I rewind, look at it. It's isolating only parts of the frame for each mask. This is also why, like, when we were doing Photoshop stuff, why I was emphasizing people to, like, use masks instead of deleting things, because you want to preserve that data. Like, that data is still valuable to you. So essentially at this point, we have a mask that adds a box and or isolates the color to just a box, and then we have another mask that is cutting away whenever that box interacts with it. So this is at least the very basics to how you would draw with After Effects, because it's all going to be with the pen tools and masks like this. But then once you have the color where you want it to be, okay, you can then click on this mode right here for that layer, and this is where the Photoshop stuff kicks back in. Every blending mode that's in Photoshop is also in here. So, for example, if I were to do a color dodge, it's going to blow out, or as the kids say, deep fry the color into the image, as opposed to making it just a solid color. And you'll notice that it looks a lot more like blinding light, right? Like almost like she's gonna be absorbed into the sun or something when it comes to how bright this stuff is. But we could just keep adding masks if we wanted to animate them. We could even set masks to what do you call it? If we come down to here and use any of the other options that is not add or subtract, intersect, that's it, intersect, and we'll only show what intersects those two. So it's like you have to practice with masks to really get a handle of the nesting element of it, of where each one on top of each other does something different. Because now if I say drag this mask above the mask, the very first mask here, it won't work anymore. It'll isolate differently than it did before. Now the adding is happening after the isolating or the intersecting of this. So essentially what I'm saying is that you first draw the shape you want, and then you animate that shape, and then you start isolating or removing parts of it based on the animation there, and also based on the movement of the footage too. All of this is happening because there is a very subtle zoom in that happens. That was done by Pika Labs, not by me. So that means that I now have to manually realign the footage, or sorry, realign the shapes to go along with that zoom in. That's where most of the animation was done.
That was helpful. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, so at this point though, what we can do is try out first the effects presets, and then we'll get into a new footage here. Because at the beginning of the talk here, we were talking about, where's the footage? Come on, where are you? Hold on a second. It disappeared on me. Where are you? Oh no, I gotta go to my workspace and turn on all panels again. Okay, there we go. So, the thing I wanted to show you guys is, let's first get rid of this and go back to our original project here. Where is it? Come on. It's somewhere. Okay, I'm zoomed into 1%. That's why. Full? Okay, I'm in full. Where are you? There. Oh. Come on. Why is it lost to me? This is probably a bug with the beta version of After Effects, because I've never run into this before. What is this? Why can't I see my project? Let's get rid of this. I'll just reopen these. This composition here, I think. Oop. Let's see. Is it this one? Sorry guys, just a sec. It's probably the top one. Yeah, it's still doing it. Okay, there it is. It was just on timeline. Got it. My bad. Okay, so what I wanted to show though was the presets. So we have this footage of Sage being rewound very quickly at the end here. And you can see there's a little click that happens here. That's from the last layer. There we go. Now it should... Oh, wait. What's going on here? Why is that showing through? What did I change? Just a second. Sorry, guys. All right. I'm just going to reopen it because I think I broke something while I was messing with stuff. So let me reopen this. Open recent. Scan beam. Oh, nope. And scan beam. This one here. Don't save. Okay. So inside of this one, we have the footage at the end here of Sage being rewound. And what I wanted to do was apply a little bit of an effect on here as it's being rewound. And inside of the effects and presets, we actually have some TV static presets that I use all the damn time because it's just a cool way to get people to go like, ah, whoa. So like let's first expand our timeline so we can see it better. Okay. And we're just going to look at what these three pieces of footage here are doing. Like I said, one of them is just isolating and doing a hold frame here. And then this one is literally just stopping the footage. It's just not like I would needed a little bit of a buffer here between the two, between the rewind and the main footage. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to select all four of these compositions, and then I'm going to right click it or Control Shift C to create a pre-comp. And we can do this also by going to composition and then create pre-comp. Where is that? Layer? It's in here. It's in there, I promise. But I just usually use Control Shift C. Creates a pre-comp. I'm going to hit OK to this. It says it's going to move all attributions to a new composition. And what this does is it just means that now I have a layer that only does everything that's inside of those four layers. Basically, I can now double click on it and then I get those layers back. So the point of a pre-comp though is that I can affect everything that's inside of it at once. So let's first make this a layer that's just this segment here. Okay. We're going to need to make sure that the footage is the same frame at the end as it is at the beginning in order to make it loop. Okay. So let's also isolate that last frame. Now we have just the footage of her rewinding as its own little layer right here. Okay. Inside of the presets, I'm going to search for TV. And now we have three different bad TV static effects that are here. If we just grab them and drop them onto that layer, it will create that effect, that bad staticky TV effect. This is a very short piece of footage, so we don't see a lot, but you can notice it added scan lines here. And then if we drag it, we can even add another one on top of that. And now it added the wave, like the bad frame interference, but it's affecting the panel up top as well. So what we can do is we can duplicate this layer. Okay, we can then open up the one underneath it, and all of our effects are saved under the effects drop down on this layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the effect on the layer underneath it. And then on the layer above, we're going to isolate it so only the bottom frame is affected by this. We do that with masks. We'll grab the square here, and then we'll simply draw the mask where we want the effect to be on. So it'll be just this bottom frame. And now I just make sure the mask is nicely aligned. We want it to be a little bit like something like here, because it's going to affect the white in the space too. So maybe we go a little lower. Let's go for something like this right here. That way we get a nice clean bar, and only the footage that's underneath it is going to be affected by the TV static preset. So now if I hit play on this, we get a moment of wibble wobble as the footage is rewound. So I'm going to pull this down and zoom in for you guys so you get a better view of just this bottom panel here. You see how it did the little wibble wobble there? That actually looks really good. I'm surprised I didn't do that already. But you can affect each one of these presets and how it's adjusting your footage in order to learn how this stuff works. So there's a reason I brought up the presets first before we start drawing things on our own. If we open up the effects for that layer, you could see each effect that it applied in order to recreate that effect, or to create that effect of this wobble that's here, this and all the noise that you're seeing that it added, right? So we have a wave warp. The wave warp is how much it's moving like left to right like this. So we can open that up and see how what settings it's using for the wave warp, and if we want to adjust any part of this, we can. So let's say let's change the direction of the warp. Right now the warp is facing straight up. But if I wanted the warp to say move in a different direction, then I just change the direction of it. And now that warp is at a 35-degree angle, and it is, you could see like it's now bleeding over the right side more than the left side. That's just one of them. That's just one of the functions in here. The only thing you really need to know as you are learning by experimenting with different presets is that anything that's in red is being controlled by something. It's being controlled by a script of some sort. We won't be getting into that. That goes beyond masterclass stuff. That actually is in terms of editing expressions inside of After Effects. It's a whole, I would say, expert level thing, because we get into programming at that point. But you don't need to know it. It's just the only thing you need to know is that if I mess with any of these red values, it's going to revert it back to whatever is here, because it's being controlled by something else. At this point, if we wanted it to say, we could take a look at these and see that it did a color balance. It did actually 2 different color balances, because I'm stacking 2 different effects on top of each other. And it also did some Venetian blinds too. So if we zoom in, the Venetian blinds is what's creating the horizontal cuts that make it look like it's scan lines or interface. Interlope? No, not interlope. It basically, it's just creating these bars, these horizontal bars. So if I open the Venetian blinds, and then I say here, the width of it's only at 5 pixels right now. If I make the width much taller, look what it's doing. It's making scan lines that go across the footage, like this. Look at that. Okay, so that means we can animate this single expression to create even more TV effect on it. So like, let's go to the beginning of the footage. I have Venetian blind open here. I'm going to hit width and put a keyframe on the width. Okay, and now I'm going to go to the end of the footage, and then I'm going to just simply slide this around until we get about, let's go for about here. And now, if I hit play on just this moment, those Venetian blinds are going to be widening and changing as I was sort of just getting taller as it moves. It's really hard to see because of how fast the footage is, but it is certainly doing it. It's making the Venetian blinds bigger, and as the footage plays through. So experiment with presets. There's nothing wrong with it. We used presets all the damn time in Adult Swim. The difference is you don't want to leave the presets as they are, because it's very, very obvious when you do that. If you use, say, like an animation transition preset, like one of the presets where it's going like, all right, almost like in Star Wars, you know that you're watching Star Wars because there's like it does the whole circular transition fade that was so popular in the 70s. That kind of thing is at least in the modern version of that, After Effects like presets are kind of obvious, and so you really want to learn with them and then mess with them in order to really create your own voice, your own style of this stuff. And if you really, really like it and you want to keep using it, like say you create like a TV an animation preset that does an effect that you really like, you could save it and apply it to future projects too. All right, so I'm going to check the chat really quick because I know there's been a couple of things here. Let's see. Photoshop with motion. Yeah, that is certainly what it is. VHS rewind. Yep, that's the effect. Cool effect. Yep, thank you, Alistair. And then nice touch. The mask looks stationary yet shows up only at certain points. Legal Beagle, was that about it earlier about the
Yeah, I asked that question.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
The detail for the eyeshadow is awesome. That's some of the thing that makes it work, but if you don't know it, you don't even know what makes it work exactly. Yeah. That's like filming an old TV directly. Right. So in terms of what Fungi Mancer is saying there, it's certainly true that these little touches are going to polish the video significantly, because eventually you start to do this stuff enough that you start to recognize when people cut corners, right? Like if I did not add shadows underneath there, I would consider that a corner cut because I didn't have time to do it. As opposed to I look at this and I go, you know, this is something that is essential for the project. It isn't, but it just helps so much. Look at the little bit of mask that goes into the corner of her hair, like her head here, is not to emphasize the hair. It's to emphasize the shape of her skull. Okay, and it just makes things feel more real when you do that stuff. The mask isn't even that good. I'll be honest. The mask actually moves because that's the static mask. That one there is like Legal Beagle was looking at here. If I actually open up that mask here, there it is. Okay. If I open this up here, the static mask for the eyebrows and the top of the head, they don't actually move at all, but they are then retract in this layer here to position them all. So like you could see if I come into here, transition, oh, no, open that up. If I open this up here, you can see that each one of these masks move, but they don't necessarily all have to move because as soon as I get the footage, as soon as I get it looking how I want it to look, I usually just send it. See, so like you notice the eyebrows are not moving. They're only in the positions they need to be at the moment that they're used. So I didn't need to animate those. I also didn't need to animate the top of the forehead, but that's also what makes it a cheap effect because the shadow is technically moving on her forehead. You notice it's going up, higher up, but because it's only used at this moment here, I didn't really care. um, Okay, all right. I've talked about this project enough. I'm saving jokey images for media after the fact. Don't want to interrupt. Okay, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, you're more than welcome to post those, and I will check them all out at the same time. It's I know that like Vinny from Vinesauce, the way that he does it is he does an art show at the end of his streams, right? Which might be a smart idea for us to do more on other streams too. But we try to do that live. It's just really hard with the way Discord's formatted. Okay, so now that we have a review of masks and presets inside of After Effects, let's immediately try to take some new footage and try animating those. So what I am going to ask you guys to do while I'm taking a sip of my coffee here and kind of hanging out with you guys for a minute, if you guys have any AI video that you have rendered even if you don't have like a real intent with it, just so that you have it link me to it in the chat here or in the text chat. Just make sure you tag me if it's outside of the chat, the show after the After Effects Masterclass chat here. I will use that footage to either try to extend it or otherwise alter it in a way. And if not, and like I'm just gonna dig through our AI video channel, just grab a couple things. So just give me about like 30 seconds here to take a sip of this coffee and give my voice a little break here. Oh yeah, and feel free to give any sort of notes about things you would want to include or add or make changes, and we'll see how feasible they are. Or otherwise, I'm just like I'll just review your footage and tell you recommendations. All right, I'm gonna start with Alara. I can already see something I can do. So, just gonna download the footage here. Okay, and then I'm gonna start a new project. So, file, new project. No. Okay. So whenever you have footage in After Effects, it is important to recognize that you can just first drag and drop the footage into After Effects. Okay, and I heavily recommend doing this because every AI video is going to have different frame rates, different FPSs basically, as well as especially different resolutions, right? So what you want to do is take whichever footage has the worst settings, so the lowest resolution or the lowest frame rate, whichever one. You want to take that piece of footage. If you're rendering all with the same service, it should all be the same. It should be, unless you have the ability to change frame rate like you do with Pika 1 or whatever. Take whichever one has the worst, grab it, and then drag it on top of the composition button right here. That will copy all the settings of that footage that you used as the composition settings. So it basically prevents there from being black bars around your footage, and it also keeps the frame rate in line with whatever's in the footage. So if we read the breakdown of this piece of footage, it's on the top left here. It says that it's a 1280 by 720 square frame or square pixel footage. And that one next to it is going to probably be always on because that's more for legacy stuff like VHS tapes and stuff. They would have a compressed number there. So even though the footage was 4:3, it's 1:1, and then it would have a ratio there instead. We don't have to worry about all that stuff because it's modern footage, but that's why there's a 1 next to it there. But if we look at the time and the FPS, that's the most important is these two here, because we want to make sure that, one, if we're doing anything that's longer than the footage is, that we can just quickly go to composition settings and then make a longer version of the composition in order to, animate this or whatever. But this also lets us change resolution. It changes the, like here's the square pixel thing I was talking about earlier. Look, it says NTSC is 0.91. These are all different, like television standards, especially like PAL and stuff from before HD existed. So a lot of this stuff you guys don't need to really care about, but just make sure it's on square pixel because you'll be very, very upset if it's not on square pixels. Basically, imagine you made an entire animation and then when you export it, everything is the wrong aspect ratio. That's what would happen. Okay, so we have okay here. We're good. We have the footage as the composition. It matches the composition matches the footage itself. Okay, so what we see here is we have a bird flying in behind Alara here, and the background is slowly transitioning with an effect on top of it all. So there's a lot of things going on with this footage, but we have the ability to take the bird out. Actually, this is what I'm going to show you guys first is in terms of say like the bird is just distracting. We need to kill the bird. The bird needs to die, and in order to do that, we need to actually create a plate of this background in order to make it so that we can cover up the footage just where the bird is. Okay. So what we do, yes, the birdie needs to die. But what we need to do is we need to find the last moment that the bird is in frame, right? So that would be right here. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use page up and page down to go frame by frame. Okay. So page up goes back, page down goes forward. And now I basically just boop, boop, until we find that frame. Oh, hi, chill guy. How you doing? All right. Feel free to hang out. You're welcome to hang out and chat here. We're doing an After Effects masterclass, so feel free to chill guy. Okay. So at this point, we found the moment that the bird has left the frame. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're just going to duplicate this layer. Boop. Oh. Boop. With Control D. You can also just right click it and hit duplicate. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a hold frame, which is just a frame. It's just going to be a still image if we do this. And we'll do that by opening up Time Remap. That is Control Alt T. That is Time Remap. And you can access this manually by right clicking it, going to Time, and then enable Time Remapping. Okay? So with Time Remap enabled, we can now control the frames or how fast the frames are being shown to us. So if I now drag this over to say where we are now, this footage is going to be a lot faster for every moment that's before this keyframe. So look at this. And then she stops, right? Because we have now crunched those frames to only the first third of the footage. If I now drag this beyond the timeline, so it's actually outside of the timeline, it'll be slower than it was before. Okay? This is how we affect time in After Effects. And so what we want to do is we just want to create a hold frame, which means that we're going to add a keyframe right here. Boop. Okay? And then we will, we will, let's see, control, right click it. And then we will apply a hold for keyframe, this one right here. A hold frame will now, at this moment, make the footage no longer move. It's locked in time right here. So because it is locked in time, everything beforehand still moves, but now we have this frame that's locked right here. What I'm going to do is actually drag this frame all the way to the front of the composition, like so, and cover and replace that first keyframe. Now, nothing moves. That's actually what we want, okay? So at this point, I can mute this layer, and we can find that moment where the bird leaves the frame, which was right here, okay? And what we need to first do is we need to animate the background to match what's happening in this footage, okay? So what I'm gonna do is first turn, let's see, yes, okay, yeah, I'm gonna turn this layer on, and then I am going to apply a blending mode that it's gonna make it more obvious when these frames change between the top layer and the bottom layer here. I like to use a blending mode called Difference. And Difference will make everything black that's the same and apply a highlight wherever it's different. Okay? So if I now page up and page down, I can actually find the frame just by looking for a completely black frame. Perfect. I have found the frame. I will now add a new keyframe to specifically the motion or the transformation of this layer. So if I unnest this and then nest it back open, you notice it opens up a transform tool. I know that's a little confusing, but in order to save space in After Effects, the way After Effects will automatically hide every tool you're not using. Okay, so if I turn on, say, Time Remap on this layer, the transform tool is not available until I hit this little up arrow or this down arrow here, and then hit it again, and now the transform tools are available to me. So it's a little annoying. I'm sorry. This is the legacy, an old way to do things in order to hide things. But yes, it is there. But mostly what I wanted to show at this point is now that we found that frame here, we can hit transform, go to position, and then turn on a keyframe for position. And because there might be a very subtle change in scale, like maybe the building gets ever so subtly bigger or smaller in the background, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to turn on scale and rotation. Now we have a keyframe for all three. Where the image is in the frame, how big the image is in the frame, and the rotation of the image in the frame. Okay? because we're on this layer that's now black, that means that this is the layer that we start with, and we're just going to rewind time. You notice, look at that, look at the effect. A lot of people actually like this color, like this sort of like effect. I think it looks pretty cool. But it does, if you zoom in, it's real crunchy. It's real crunchy. But what we're gonna do is we're going to now rewind to the beginning of the footage, okay? And you can notice where the mismatch is now. We basically just have to realign these shapes, and we will be able to then track the background. So this is how you do manual tracking. It is far more laborious than doing motion tracking, but we would actually, it's just such an easy transition, such a simple move for the background. This is going to be way better, way easier than using any of the motion tracking tools. We'll maybe get into that later, but if we now take this layer that we have and then shift it around, we can realign the black parts of this building here. Something like this. Let's go for like here, okay? And we take a look at the backgrounds. We see if there's any parts that are going to overlap in weird ways. And we notice that there is a cutoff here, that we have a place where the bird's wing is still going to show up, even if we black it out. We will probably do this as a patch later on. So for now, this is fine. What I'm going to do now is I am going to first make sure that we have a good height on this. I need to lower it a little bit. I'm using the arrow keys to hone in where the building is. And now look at that. The building is completely blacked out. That means we have a perfect alignment for this building. Okay. And so what I'm going to do now is turn off that.
Sorry, I lost connection.
Okay. Let's, if you don't mind, man, I'm going to just server mute you real quick. Let's see here. Server mute. No offense, man. All good. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I have the footage all blacked out. Okay. There is, what I'm going to do is change the blending mode from difference now back to normal. And we could take a look at what happened here. Okay. We can just hit play. And look what it did. It's transitioning. It is shifting in position and height ever so slightly. And then as soon as it reaches to the end of the keyframe, nothing happens. Okay? That means that we need to then delete or cut off everything that happens after these keyframes. And there's a very easy way to do that. We just hit Control-Shift-D. That is a split. So instead, Control-D does a duplication, right? Like that. But if you do Control-Shift-D, it does a split. And now with a split, we can just delete this layer. And what that means is that as soon as I hit play on this, the footage just continues. Okay? Now, all the particle effects are not going to be respected here. It is a static image that is overlaying the footage. But the number one thing to keep in mind here is, where's the bird? The bird's gone, right? The bird's dead. Not yet, though. He's kind of hidden in behind there. And so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to mute this layer, okay? And we're going to create a mask that follows the bird in order to isolate only this part of the frame and hide the bird from the audience. So what we do to do that is we simply create a mask. And the thing is about this is that here's a really this is an expert level tip. Whether you're working in broadcast media like news or television or anything like that, or you're doing creative animations and stuff like that, almost everybody, especially in motion graphics, starts at the end of the footage because it's a lot easier to animate in backwards than to animate linearly for almost every effect. Because think about it, if there's an explosion, the lights all get brighter in the first quarter second, and then everything kind of dims and fades after that. There's all sorts of other reasons and other use cases that explain why this is better to do in reverse. But it makes so much more sense because you have your end goal and now you're just getting there, right? Which is kind of funny. Maybe that's why my mindset for AI images works well, because I'm so happy working in reverse, working backwards from the regular workflow of animating, frame by frame. So what we're going to do here is we are going to first find the frame where the bird's the biggest at the end here. I'm going to go for this one right here. I think that's a pretty good shape. And now we are going to grab the pen tool, similar to the box tool earlier. We are going to grab the pen tool and just outline the bird. So I will click here. Oops. I need to make sure I'm clicked on that layer. Okay. It's a little confusing, but you can draw on top of invisible layers. And you need to do that in order to see what you're working on. So if I turn this, say I turn this layer on, I can't see the bird that I'm tracing right now. But if I turn off the visibility of this layer, I can still affect that layer, right? So I can now draw the actual mask around this bird. So I'm doing that now. It's a little hard because it's a dark green color. I'll change that in a second. Now we have a mask around the bird. I will select a different color for the mask by dropping open the mask. Click on here, and then we will do something much more vibrant. There you go. And you can see it's just a very loose mask around the bird. And most likely it'll be something where it's actually easier to like not even respect the wings, like just bring this down to here, okay? And before we tweak the settings of this mask, make it clean, that kind of stuff, we are just going to animate it. We're going to position, make sure that the mask is always over the bird. So before we animate anything, before we move this mask or alter it in any way or move our timeline at all, we really, this is so important, so important. Before you do anything with your mask, you need to make sure that your keyframes are on, because you'll be very upset if you start animating stuff and then you go back and nothing moved or nothing animated, right? So the way we do that is we open up the mask, making sure we're on the correct layer, you know, the layer that we're working on, and the frame that we're working on. And we're going to hit mask path. That will animate, that will basically give us a keyframe for each position of this mask. So now what I can do is I can go, because remember, we're starting at the end of the footage. I can now go to the front of the footage, okay, the very beginning of it, and just drag that mask over the bird, okay? And you can see, because the bird is, you know, flapping its wings and it's flying, we need to change the shape of the mask. And because we made it a keyframe, as long as we don't move what frame we're on, these adjustments, every individual adjustment will animate. So we just come over here and start dragging over the shape of the bird loosely. We don't need to be that exact. We just need to be close, because we can always refine it later. And let's drag this down to here, drag that over to here. And it's more about making sure we don't excessively cover things up, and we're just focusing on the bird, okay? So now we have a mask animating from one position to another, and I'm going to make this an even more poppy color so that we can see it even more through this footage. Let's go for blue, maybe. Blue's bad. I guess green is the best for this. Ugh. Okay, so we have this mask, right? Now look what happens if I scroll through. The mask is now loosely following the bird, okay? We're not tracking it like with the motion tracking or anything. We're just doing keyframes. So what we need to do now is find the midpoint between these two. Okay, it's a little bit awkward because Alara's face is in front of the midpoint between these two keyframes. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a keyframe to the middle between these two. The reason why I'm doing that is because if I make a change halfway through, it might affect the latter half of the keyframe movement here. So basically what I'm doing is I'm working in halves. So I first go to the half between the keyframe. That applies a new keyframe there. And now I'll go to the halves between these. So we're splitting it from half to quarters. So we will now go to about 3/4 through the footage like this. And we will change the shape of the mask once again to the shape of the bird. So let's go for something like this. A tip I would give at this point is that your masks should loosely follow an intent for each point. So like, for example, the intent of this exact keyframe or mask point here is to be the bottom of the wing here, the bottom of the bird. And so I can then click and drag each part of this to somewhat match the shape of the bird. Okay, now we have this. Let's now go to the first fourth, this somewhere right here, like the first fourth of the footage, something like that. And we will do the same thing on this and just adjust the mask one more time. And it's not a big deal that we're just ignoring Alara in this shot for now. We will apply her back later with a future mask in terms of animating or getting us a clean result from these. You notice that my instinct here was to pull all of this back in order to only wrap the part of the wing here. This, I'm going to actually undo this because we don't need this. We're going to eventually cover up all of this area with a layer on top of this for just Alara. But what I'm just looking at the wings, I'm just looking at the tail here, and I'm making sure that the mask covers those, okay? And now we can scroll through and see where the mask breaks or is off. So like if we notice here, every wing flap goes up like this, which means the mask needs to adjust now in between all of these to adjust for that wing. So let's now drag this up and start to trace this frame. And the reason why I'm showing it this way to you guys is that the goal here is that we're compartmentalizing the problem. We are going from the start of this as just being track this from point A to point B to adjust it strategically with midpoints. So one midpoint, then another midpoint, then another midpoint. Because if you start from beginning and then start to animate, by the time you get to the end, it's going to be kind of lopsided or weird or otherwise not be evenly flowing with the bird. But if you work with midpoints like this, where we're going to the center or the midpoint between each keyframe, it ensures that you are getting a smooth movement. So we are just, oops, not that one. Let's go to this keyframe right here. That's one we were working on. And you can see I just need to capture a little bit of the bottom of the foot there. And now that keyframe is done. And we will now go to this midpoint here and keep making adjustments. So I'm going to give you guys a moment to jump into chat here while I make any sort of minor adjustments of this mask. So like this, you see how I made this quick compartmentalizing the problem. That's how I do everything. Right. But if you got anything to say in chat, this is a good time to do it because I just basically need to keep jumping in the middle of these keyframes and then tracing the bird every time I do. So let's now go to the middle of this. And you can see there's just a little bit of the tail that's on the bottom here. So I just need to drag these down to here. Something like that. Okay. Midpoint on this one. Drag this down to here. And then I'll be sure to check out chat if there's any other questions. If I went too fast over something, please tell me. I will be happy to go over things again. But I'm basically just tracing the bird out here and trying to remember the keyframes and their intent. So the bottom two keyframes are just meant for these wings here, and the bottom right ones here are just meant for the opposite wing. Okay, so now that I have this one, I will continue to just scroll through until I see like there's a big unnecessary amount of space cut out here. I could just drag that down on this midpoint. With this midpoint here, we need to bring the wing out to here. We need to bring this here. We need to bring that here. And we could change the anchors at any time by moving these, right? You can break it by going like this. But ideally, we just want to have this be snug, but not too close. We don't need to trace things perfectly here. Okay, we have the bird there. Let's go for another midpoint here. Something like this. And as soon as I'm done masking this bird, I'll get into the chat questions and statements, or unless Legal Beagle, you want to read something off to me.
Nobody's asked anything yet.
Okay, cool. No worries. When they do, though, feel free to interrupt me.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And you can see here the only thing that
I'm not shy about that.
All good, all good. Um, as we start to refine this, right? Oh, hey, Lolo. We are basically just making this a more complicated animation on the mask. So we're coming in and just going in and covering up this bird with this mask. Let's adjust a couple more. We really have to be aware of where it adds excess cut, like where the mask is just going to cut out a bunch of space, because you will notice that. You will notice a hard line. If say like I masked this big section underneath here for only one frame, it's going to be clicky and you'll see it. So the only thing we're going to do is just stay close, somewhat snug to the bird, but not like crazy or anything. We can be loosey goosey with it, because we will be adjusting the actual mask itself, the expansion of the mask, when we get done here. So, all right, we're almost done with the with masking the bird here. I've just got this one here, and usually every other frame doesn't need a keyframe. We can usually get away with only doing every other frame has some animation to it, but we may have to make minor adjustments as the wings flap. Look at that. Look at how the mask is now following the bird, even though I haven't animated every frame of it. I've basically just said, hey, this is the guideline here. And you can notice there's no keyframe on this one, and the wing kind of pokes out a little bit here. So now I just drag that down, and boom. That keyframe now takes that into adjustment here. So there's a little bit of wing here. Boom. And we just make sure we go frame by frame, and that bird is completely covered by the mask. Let's see. Page up and page down are going to be your best friends. Okay, the bird, oh, this one right here, there's a little bit here. There you go. This one here, nice big break in the mask there. This was 90% of my job when I was working at entertainment, was just fiddling with masks. And so there's faster ways to do things now with more automated tools, but I'll tell you right now that they are not meant for AI footage. They're meant for live action or really constrained animation projects. And part of the problem with AI video is that they are not compatible with a lot of those tools. Let's see here. Now, what we're going to do is you can see just how dense the keyframes are on the start of the footage versus what is at the end of the footage here. And it just shows you what it takes to refine this stuff and make it like a fully animated thing. So like if I now grab another midpoint, let's do this midpoint here. I'm just going to finish this mask and see if we got any... okay, yeah, and any questions, Legal Beagle will field them for you. Thank you so much. So I'm just coming close with the mask here. That seems pretty good. Let's go for another midpoint here. It really helps to have midpoints too, because to work with midpoints, because it just kind of keeps everything organized in a way, like mentally. Like I'm not guessing what frame that I have to go to next. I just need to make sure it's in between two keyframes. So, like I don't have to think about it. I can just put it right here. Something like that. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. You can see there's technically no midpoint here because it's an even number, but that doesn't matter because we can now make just minor adjustments in order to field these remaining small changes that we need to make. As long as the bird is fully covered up, you're doing a good job. Assuming that you guys also want to kill birds. Let's see here. All right. 1, 2, 3. Boom. I mean, to be honest, Alara's a cat, so it makes sense. Every cat I know has been wanting to murder birds. Let's see here. Let's follow the wing a little bit kind of tight here. You can see as I scroll through, it does a lot of work for me as I make these adjustments here. And working linearly means I might have to like double back a bit. So it's so important to use the midpoint method in order to find the most troublesome spots, and make those adjustments early so that you can then so you're not reanimating or readjusting keyframes constantly. It's a very easy trap to get into when you start animating frame by frame like that. It's a lot easier to rely on the tweening of these keyframes. So let's see. Now I just look for every blank part of the footage, or wherever there's not a keyframe, and I make sure the bird's completely covered. So that one's good. That one needs a little adjustment here. Is this one? Yeah, that one needs an adjustment here. Like that. A little bit up here. A little bit out here. Ooh, that's a big one. Okay. This one needs a little bit down here and a little bit down here. Okay, and now we're going to finish the footage, and this is where I was saying I'm going to actually show you how to do it wrong first, because I feel like that's important. If you do this frame by frame, so let's just say I'm going to animate like this linearly. The problem with that is that let's make a change. Let's grab this mask and just shift it over to the side. Like that. And then I'm going to animate it again. Shift it over to the side, animate it again, shift it over a little bit. But now I have to make a change, right? If I make this change as it is now, okay, look what happens to the mask. It flickers. It's not gonna move. It's going to just reshape itself and flicker. There is no smoothness to this. But if I now go back and delete these frames, so let's say these ones here, now the mask is animating. It's moving. It's tweening with it, and I would need to adjust the wings there at the bottom. But yeah, it's so much better. It's just so much better to animate by going to the end of the footage now. So I'm basically coming back to here. Here's the frame we were last at. Now I'm going to go to the end of the footage, find where that bird is right here, and now grab this mask and drag it to match. Okay, and now we just make the midpoint adjustments again like we were doing before. Go to the midpoint, boom, and now we adjust the mask. It roughly cuts out half the work to do the midpoint method, in my opinion. Some people will do it depending on what you're animating, like if you're doing like particle physics and things like that, a little bit different. You probably want to more rely on a very good generation as opposed to necessarily tweaking the settings all the time, because people will see that. It's a lot better to just go like, okay, I'm going to now have this blasting cannon of particle effects, and it's going to be tweaked in terms of the how many particles it emits. That kind of thing is way better than saying I'm just going to manually animate every particle. So now we're going to find another midpoint. Boom. Let's do this. Let's do this. Drag that down to here. Especially with a flapping bird where the shape is constantly changing, this adds this might seem like a good amount of work right now, and it is, especially when you start to do this. Like, now imagine you have a 30-minute show. How long is this footage, Alara? It is 8 seconds. 8 seconds. And doing this for a 15-minute to 30-minute show is a shitload of work. So it's really, really good idea to not have to do this manually for every shot. Just animate it right in production. But that's not possible. There's always going to be things to fix, things to change, that kind of thing. Yeah, that shows. Yeah, that's exactly why they would take longer. So you're making adjustments with tools like this, and you have to manually control each layer, each frame to do what you want it to do. So I'm just going to do this midpoint trick until everything gets covered up by this mask, and then we will finally be able to get to the next stage of this, which is the activating the mask and then adjusting the mask expansion to completely cover the bird without covering too much of the background, so that nothing flickers, nothing looks weird. So I'm just going midpoint to midpoint here. Something like here, yep. Okay, that's decent. Yeah, that works. Get this into there, this into here, this tightened up. And it also lets me know, like, I don't need to do anything wherever there's a keyframe because of the midpoint method. I've already established where the bird is in those, so I don't need to make those adjustments anymore. It really is a helpful trick. Let's go for this one here. Bring that back up. Good. Back up. Good. And then we will drag this down, and because the spire is here, we really want to make sure that's a bit tighter. So let's go for about here. A little bit tighter here. You guys are also going to take advantage of film grain and other things that AI video generates to kind of like patch things up more easily. It is certainly true that there's all sorts of tricks that I did on the Micah animation where she's running out of the church in my tutorial. There's a lot of tricks that I use to get that to do like the tracking, like the masking and whatnot. I even made a completely new leg for her at a point because it was just kind of glitchy from the results I was getting. But anyway, so here's the thing. We can now, using the N key here, I'm going to hit N, and that's going to put the end of the timeline wherever I hit N here. So if I now hit play on this, we can see it from end to end here, and it's not going to have a bunch of black frames at the end. The key thing at this point is the mask is gone. You don't see it. But if we now turn on, let's see here, view, and then show. Okay, I guess the guides are a little different than before, but yeah, I could just scroll through it manually so you can see. You can see now the mask is fully animating wherever the bird is, and it doesn't matter where it is in front of Laura, so that just kind of goes back to its shape, and then the bird starts flapping again, so it starts to track that. Look at that. And now we have a mask of the bird flapping, and so we can just turn this layer back on and take a look at what we did. Okay, from this far zoomed out on a tiny screen to you guys, it probably looks pretty decent, right? But it's actually not. There's more than a couple problems, and I'll show you that. If I now scroll through here, wherever Alara is static, wherever she's in the mask, right? And wherever we cross the buildings, it does a pretty decent job. Like, look how good because we ran difference earlier and we realigned the footage, the building is nearly perfect, right? But the particle effect disappears wherever the bird is in front of. So like, if you notice here, there's supposed to be a bird here, but wherever the bird is, the particle effects just disappear and reappear as static images. So we have a couple different ways that we can fix this. The first thing that we got to do is we got to apply a feather to the mask. This will blur this hard line from showing up. You notice if I zoom all the way in here and I do page up, page down so you can see it, there is a hard line between the mask and the footage underneath it. So if I click it, you'll notice it follows the mask. So let's apply a feather to this. Usually I start around 15 because that's 7 pixels in one direction, 7 pixels in the other. And it's gone. It's all gone. The mask layer is perfect for this. It seems about 7 will do the trick for blurring between the plate and the footage of the static image. And the footage underneath it. My bad. So we now have a version where there is some subtle wiggleness. Like you notice the clouds kind of wiggle here, right? We will fix that probably as basically another hold frame. But I'm mostly coming through here to make sure that the feather, like the mask expansion here, is the last thing that we tweak with the mask, and it's going to decide how far out or how far in the mask actually cuts off. So if I now shrink this down, you're going to start to see the bird reappear because the mask is now being shrunk from wherever it's drawn. Okay. I can also go the other way. So if I do, say, 15 again, notice now it has parts of her arm and a lot. Like basically, this is how you fine tune your masks. Okay. We don't need to do too many changes for this one. In fact, down here you can see it actually captured part of her arm already. So this is an example of where I come in and I start to adjust the mask to clean that up. There we go. That looks pretty good. So at this point, what we want to do is we want to see if there's any particular motion that we can adjust for the background here, because the bird's almost perfect with the buildings. It's the in terms of the building being matching like this is perfect in terms of positioning. But there's parallax, and parallax means that there is elements in the background that move slower than the foreground in order to make it look like distance. So you could see that this building here on the right and this spire here on the right and this spire here on the left, they will shrink. The distance between these two spires will shrink, which is parallax. See that overlap that happens? That parallax is what sells the depth of the footage. And the reason why that's important is because the parallax is the reason why the clouds are misaligning at certain parts. You notice that it clicks over to the right here. Okay, that means that we can now create a second plate that is just meant to clean things up. It's literally like a cleanup tool, and it's also going to clean up Alara's face here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we are going to take this layer that is just a static image, and we are going to apply a new mask to this. But we can use a couple other tools to speed up this process a little bit. So if I now select, let's do, where is it? Where's the roto tool? It's been a while since I used this tool, so let me see if I can find it real quick. Where are you? That's the puppeting tools. There you go, roto brush tool. Okay, I'm going to use the painter. Okay, so I'm just going to double click on this and we can see, actually let's make a new layer first, because if we do this in the same layer we might run into some issues. So let's just duplicate this layer. I'm going to delete the mask that we made because the mask underneath it's still there. It's just this is a new layer. So I'm going to delete this. And now I'm going to double click this and I'm going to use the roto tool to roto her based on this drawing that I do. There you go. And then we draw a little bit up into here holding shift and it grabs her ear. And then we will grab the side of her face here holding alt to remove it. This is exactly like another tool in Photoshop that you might be aware of. I actually need to open up Photoshop to get the name of it. But it's a regional selection tool. So let me just open this up really quick. I'll open this up. It is the quick select tool. That's what it's called. The quick select tool does the same thing. It lets you quickly select objects and it finds hard lines in between your shapes, but it's not object selection. It's not an AI tool. It has nothing to do with the tool that's just above it, which is the AI object selection tool, which is a lot more powerful at getting, say, like the outlines of your character right on the mask. So I just wanted to show that really quick because now that we have a quick mask of Alara here, right, we can actually tell it to animate this mask for us. So if I say that this mask here is the roto tool here, so let's oh, that's right, I'm working on the static footage. My bad. So we have something good here. It's good to have. I'm just gonna keep this for now. But I'm going to mute this, and I'm actually going to duplicate the layer, the first layer, the footage of her walking, because that's the real power of the roto tool here. So let's duplicate that, and then drag that to the top of our timeline. So it's going to be the thing that overlaps everything here. And then I'm going to double click this footage, and we'll use the roto tool one more time. Something like this. Make sure we select her chest there, the hair, the ears, this ear, and the rest of the hair here. And it does a nice clean mask for that. And it even ignored the bird, which is convenient. And we just hold shift to grab any other parts that we might see. Let's go for a little bit of that. Okay. All right. That's a pretty darn good mask. And now, I believe, yes, if we animate with the roto brush tool, it'll automatically find the high contrast moments of Alara right here and create a clean mask around it. This was impossible to do with the bird because the bird overlaps Alara and it's blurry. Alara is super clean in this footage. So the roto brush tool is going to be your best friend. But now that we have Alara scoped out here, right? The tail doesn't actually cut off anything. We don't need to worry about the tail. It's just the interactions. So just the bird and Alara is all we need. And I will now go into this footage here. Keep in mind, we have her on the very top layer is the one that we did the roto brush tool on. And now look what happens. She no longer distorts, but the bird distorts behind. So you can see we have a little bit of artifacting here from it. We have a little bit of artifacting right at the front here because it's kind of like flickering in between these. But the mask is doing a great job of keeping Alara in the shot here, okay? And I will tell you guys right now, this footage here, let's actually fix the front there because if we look at the mask here, I can almost guarantee you it's collecting some of the bird here. Look at that. There you go. See the mask, it added the bird, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to come into here and remove this part of the mask, holding Alt to do it. Look, isn't that so powerful? Look at that. Look at that. It cut the whole wing off for us just by holding Alt and clicking on it. All right, sweet. We got it there. Now if I go back to the footage, okay, it's up here, the composition. Whenever you double click on a layer, it shows up as another panel up here. You can just hit X on here, and that brings you back to the composition, or you can click it. But now that we've made sure that there's no mask where the bird is, we get a pretty clean result all through here. So let's look at that footage really quick. And I'm going to take a sip here and see if there's anything else from you guys for a sec. Let's see. All right. So what you can tell here, and this is what I was saying earlier about for AI video, for almost every application that's out there right now, because you're not like making commercial television or anything like that, this is probably good enough for most use cases. You know what I mean? Like there is another bird in the background that I did not notice right off the bat. I'm going to ignore that bird. I'm going to pretend like this bird doesn't exist. But the thing is that what we want to do at this point is we need to now fine tune this result. The bird flapping in the background is definitely visible inside the clouds because the clouds are shifting in position while the image itself, or the static image that we have covering up the bird, is not shifting in position. Okay, so in order to fix that, we need to create a clean plate of this moment here. Because like we currently have a plate of just one frame in the middle here, and it includes Alara, it includes there's a lot going on there. So what we can do is we can find the moment that's completely clean from the bird right here at the start. So now we know this frame is totally clean. You could see that there's a little bit of motion that happens with the clouds, but not much. So we can come into here, and now I'm going to create a new layer, a duplicate of the very first layer on the bottom here. This is just our raw footage. I should be renaming these, but this is our raw footage, and I know that the clouds here all look good. So I'm just going to do a general selection. Oops. I'm just going to do a general selection of this area of the footage. Why are you doing this? Oh, okay. I have to go from add vertex to pen tool. Got it. Okay. So now I will just draw wherever those clouds were getting all flickery, which is going to be just behind Alara here and coming up right there. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Now there is a portion of the footage. We haven't done any lock for or timing or anything like that, so it's just going to be a part of the footage that is isolated. What we want to do at this point is we want to do Control Alt T to bring up time remap, and then we are going to add a keyframe for that. Holding Control Alt again, we can then just click on the keyframe to make it a hold frame, or you can right click on it and say apply or toggle hold frame. And we then delete the first keyframe to make sure that we can drag this to the back, and now every frame has this static moment. But the wing is there. So this is a moment where I come in and I actually adjust the actual position of this frame. So we just need to do 1 or 2. There you go. I changed it from the 18th second to the 21st second to make this frame here. But we can scroll through these and see. Yeah, you can see. I think that's going to be the best. And we got a nice clean shape here. So now I just need to track the clouds as it passes in front of Alara here. So let's or as the bird passes behind Alara. So I'll grab this frame here. Okay. I will open up transform, hit position, scale, and rotation like we did before. And then we'll do the same trick we did for the buildings. We are going to do difference, okay? And then scroll back. And why is it black? Why? Oh, that's right. Let me go all the way to the. I have to drag this to the top here, like that. And looks like difference is not giving us enough difference. I need to let's see here, because it's such a subtle gray, like such a subtle color difference in the clouds, right? I think that's where we're getting into some. But now that I have this footage on top, okay, let's see here. We get a hard line here. So I need to now apply a feather to this mask until that hard line goes away. And you notice that as I did that, it created a rim. It created some artifacting here. This is where the mask expansion comes in. And I will simply adjust the mask expansion until that line goes away. There you go. The line's now gone. Now, the reason why this is working is because this top left corner is not actually moving anymore at all. It's just the static frame that I might need to animate or shift over to the side. But there is so little movement of the background at this moment, I don't know if I need to. But you could see that there's still a little bit of artifacting, a little bit of issue that comes up with this. So that's because Alara, the mask that I have around Alara is actually this layer here. So before I make this way more confusing than it needs to be, let's rename these layers. I will simply right click and hit rename. So this one is Alara mask. This one is the let's go to rename. This one is the static plate clouds. And then this footage right here is the bird rename. And this is the bird mask. And then the very base of this is the footage, is the raw footage. It's always a good idea to have a layer that's just the raw footage so that you can always have something to refer onto if you go too far or you need to make adjustments later, right? So we have this as a raw footage, bird mask, Alara mask, and the static plate for the back for the clouds here. So at this point, what we can do is now expand. Let's see here. Where am I exactly? There we go, clouds. So I can expand. You can see that it adds that artifact back in there. We need to find a clean plate for these moments right here. You see there's a little bit of a flicker right here? Yeah, okay. So that means that if I flicker this one on and off, you can see where the clouds moved in this shot. So I'm going to actually animate these clouds really quick to match this. Let's go for, I think here. I'm gonna just turn this off really quick so I can see what mask I used for this. I believe it was the last frame of this that I did. All right, let's see what it is actually. I can just read it. It's the 21 second, the 21st second. So I will make sure that I'm on 21. If you have trouble, like you have a massive timeline, right? You can just click on the number here and write what number frame you want to go to and just hit enter. And then that will take you to the 21st frame or whatever you write there. So now that we have this aligned in terms of what layer I drew the mask on and stuff, I am going to go to the transform tools like we see here. That's already turned on. So I need to drag these 3 keyframes to this position here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this position and I am going to drag it to the right until it, make sure that layer's on, until it realigns the clouds. It's going to be very, very subtle what change we're going to have to make here, but let's turn on difference now. Difference. And see if we can actually see it at all. I'm curious. Okay, look how subtle of the difference that is. It's going to be really hard to use difference to see where these two overlap or not. So instead of difference, let's go back to normal. And I am going to apply just a general opacity and see if we can get this to where I can see both results here. Not really. It's really fighting me on this one. So let's just drag this to around here. I'm just going to kind of wing it on this one. I think this works here. So let's see how that is. It's such a subtle difference. It's such a subtle movement that we need in order to sell this background. You can see by the time we got to the end here, that is because the frame, there's no more keyframes at the end here, so it starts to overlap Alara here. We actually need these clouds to be behind Alara. There you go. Now that's gone. We can have the mask be as expansive as we want it to be because, again, this mask of Alara is sitting at the very top. So nothing is going to affect Alara here anymore. But it will create artifacts like this that we then have to find the clean frame of, like that, and start to create masks that patch up those spots. So now we can drag this all the way up to here and grab this area here, like so, and then do a hold frame like we did before. Add that, hold frame, delete, drag that to the back, and now this box that's here is just going to be static like it was with everything else. Okay, but the point is that we can now take this mask, apply a little bit of a feather. We don't need that big of a feather, and we need to find every moment where this area screws up in the footage. Okay, so I'm just going to thumb through here, and it looks like that's the last frame where the bird leaves behind Alara's head. So this is the end of this footage. I'll just cut it off here, Control-Shift-D, and the start of this problem, the artifact, is around here. So let's now get rid of everything before this moment. There you go. We've isolated this layer to just the moment where the artifact in front of her hair is. Okay, I can now turn on this layer again, and the only thing that we're going to do is we're just going to manually realign her hair here. So we have one frame that's static footage. We will go to transform and then go to the end of the footage. Okay, and we'll see which one is better aligned. Definitely the front of the footage is going to be better for this shot, but sometimes it's better to go to the end for this kind of stuff. But then we're going to go for the front here, and we're just going to make sure all of our keyframes are turned on. So we have scale, rotation, and position. And now I'm going to drag this to the end of this clip, something like here. And we can use difference to really sell this, or we could just do it by eye and just get it to be where they realign, something like here. We need to do a little bit more adjustments than this though, because it doesn't align on the top as it does on the bottom. This is what happens if you do this too much. There's going to be an element of movement that, like, say, like if her hair was fluttering in the wind, it would be a lot more problem. I'm actually really happy that her hair doesn't move much in this shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use difference to realign both the rotation and the position this time, as opposed to just the position. So you can see we have it's a black frame at the beginning, which is exactly what we want. And then we need to find where it is different at the end here, like so. And we're just going to adjust the rotation and position of this footage until it matches. The scaling we will probably not have to change. I still turn it on in case I do, but I think we just need to do 1 or 2 points this way. Yeah. And then drag this down to about here. We're already really close, but we need to be a little bit closer. So let's do negative 3.1. Negative 3.2. That's a little better, but we can position it now. Something like that. We'll go back a little bit. Negative 3.1. And we'll go forward. Negative 3.3. And negative 3.6. There we go. That's a lot better. Now we don't have a line on the top. We don't have a line on the bottom. Everything's a little more aligned. And we can now scroll through the footage, again, using the midpoint animation technique that I was explaining earlier. We are going to scroll to the middle here and do that again. We are just going to rotate something like this and then reposition. -2 maybe, and then reposition. And we're gonna have to go pretty extreme. Let's bend that in pretty good, because we need to adjust for that little bit of hair that's in the bottom there, and that could be a problem later. We'll see. Not scale. I just need to get this to where most of the frame is black again. We need to do a little bit of some funny stuff with this one here. Let's go for about here. At least for now. No, I don't like either of these rotations. Let's go for this. Let's just go for this, and I'll keep it at this little hump of the hair, and we're gonna see just how much distortion there is, and then make a call because of that. So let's go ahead and hit normal on our blending mode here, and we can see that at least at the beginning and the end, it lines back up, but the middle here is giving us a lot of trouble. And I think if I now just do this by eye instead, we can make it work. Okay, you can see the top of it is a little wrong and the bottom of it is moving a little too fast. So we then come into here and we just rotate this just a little bit, just a wee little bit. And I haven't adjusted where the anchor point is on this at all, but it's okay. We don't really need to worry about that much. But you can see as I start to rebuild this, there's always going to be some element of finagling, and if I do this too much, it'll be glitchy. It'll move in a weird way that's really obvious that I made changes to it. And now let me turn it off to see if that pitch happens normally. It more picks up as opposed to turning, so I think I've rotated in the wrong direction. There's all sorts of little like adjustments and things. You're gonna go back and make edits like this. I need to delete all these keyframes that I made, and I need to readjust the movement that's here without difference mode on, because that was actually throwing me off, I think. So now I can bend this up to here. Yeah, that should be better. Yeah, let's just do this without any blending modes here. And now I can readjust this frame here. And the only thing we're doing is we're just realigning things manually. Let's go for something like, I'm using my arrow keys to move this part of the footage here. And you do run the risk of it looking especially glitchy if you do this too much. But that is so much better than it was before. Just that. And you can see there's a little bit of a flicker here that we need to adjust. Let's just get rid of this last keyframe. because it's already doing most of the work for us. Okay. And because this is just a square, we can adjust the mask. Now that we have it all rotated and positioned, we can adjust the mask as needed. So let's first take a look at what we did, and then make our calls based on that. And in order to make it a lot easier to review individual layers and shots, we can press B to do the start of the timeline, and then N to be the end of the timeline. So now that I can just hit 0, and it will render just this moment. And you can see there's still a little bit of flicker on the bottom. There's still a little bit of flicker at the top. But we should be able to now that we have this rotating in alignment, we should just be able to say, hey, mask. Because remember, we're not rotating, and we didn't animate the mask. We animated the footage underneath it. So that means that now I can come into here and adjust my mask dynamically to adjust for any flicker or anything that we might have seen from earlier. So I'll go for maybe a little taller, something like here. And you can see there is some misalignment. There's a little bit of misalignment here. So I don't want to go too far. But now that there is a secondary, like we've been able to expand the mask here. Look at that. It moves with her. Okay? So now I should just be able to hit 0. And take a look at this. That's already way better, guys. It's already way, way, way better. And we're only adjusting for that moment. That's just after her head here. From Alara here. Though, wow, this also really reinforces how much you want to pay attention to the initial frames you're using too. You don't want to have to do too much of this either. You're right. It really just shows you that if I were to animate this linearly, it would be a lot more headache inducing, because I would run into something at the end or 2/3 through it, and then I would have to go back and adjust those keyframes and just be going back and forth. It's a lot of work to do it that way. And it's really just a jittery way to do it. But if you work with the keyframes where you're actually working where you're relying on those keyframes to move everything for you, as opposed to step by step, it's going to be a lot better. Pardon me for the new creator. What does animate linear mean frame by frame? Okay, yeah. So basically, what we're doing here is we're animating with keyframes. So we're only assigning where each change happens in it. But if we were to animate linearly, that means that I would only be addressing the next frame. So it would be like, all right, I made my adjustments, next frame, animate, 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 made my adjustments, next frame, and then animate, 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 and then so on and so forth. So the idea is that we want to just rely on any sort of automated animating that we can get away with, right? So keyframes is really what the answer is there. At this point, though, what we are looking at here is that we have a couple other parts of the frame that we need to start to do the same thing to. But yeah, go ahead, Legal.
Alistair just wanted to clarify what you mean by animate linearly.
Well, I just answered that. All good.
Oh, sorry, I got distracted. Okay.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. No worries. But the key thing is that we have all sorts of different little parts that still need to get cleaned up, but we've already made a big progress just by talking about the roto tools to isolate Alara. That was a major one that's covering up a lot of the slop of what we're doing. We have a layer above that one that's just a static frame that controls where the slop is and isolates it so that it covers it up. And then we also have a layer at the beginning that is locking that down. So essentially, in terms of showing you guys a task here, you could see that how this is done at scale. As in, like if I wanted to fix every part of this, it would require making another layer like this and then adjusting the other parts that were a bit wonky. Like look at her tail on the left side here, right? We would do that again and just focus on this area instead of this area. And we just realign until we until we have every little bit that's wrong with this covered up. Okay? So we're basically just patching. And when it comes to things like this, like you can see when the bird flies in front of the building, the particle effect disappears. Okay? This is a relatively hard thing to fix. What you would need to do to fix this is actually basically grab wherever this particle is in the footage. So let's just say this is this particle here. We know that this particle is floating up here, and like honestly, guys, in Hollywood, this is the most upsetting thing to do. You have to track each one of these particles and then recreate them wherever they're covered up. I'm not going to do that today. That's just an easy way to make me grumpy. But basically, we would take this. See, the particle disappears right here, and then reappears up here. So that means that again, working in reverse. I'm just going to show it real quick as a demo. I would grab this particle here with a very, very small tight box, and then do a hold frame, boom, add keyframe, hold frame, delete that first frame, and now we just have a layer that's literally just this frame. And because the mask, it's only focusing on this air. So now if we were to rewind this footage, that particle should basically stay static, right? Okay. So now we would find, after applying all of our keyframes here, we would find where that particle shows up at the beginning. So right there, right here, and then move this box to there. Move the footage to there. So we would then take this position here, drag this down, boom, find that particle, and then track that particle back into position here. You can see it's not really doing what I want it to do right now, but let's see. Why are you doing that? Are you animating still? No, okay. Then why? Okay, it needs to be up top here. Boom. And you can basically either cover up or get rid of that problematic thing, or you can track that particle down and then basically recreate it. It's a bitch. It's just a massive bitch to do it that way. I'm going to tell you guys this right now. It doesn't matter for AI footage. If we were making a Hollywood production, I would say fix up every one of these damn particles. But for what we're doing, it's not necessary. No one's going to notice that. No one's going to care. It's the only person that's going to care is you, okay? But there is stuff to still fix in here, but I want to give it to you guys as being like an experiment of how to do half of it right and the other half open, so that you guys can also like mess around with this stuff and maybe, you know, fix it in a bit of a different way than I did, or whatever you end up doing. I just think that at least showing you guys how I covered up the first artifact, I really don't need to repeat this 8 times so that we can cover up every little bit of this that kind of wiggles, right? So it's mostly just the clouds right here. But boom, see there's a little bit of wiggle there. There's a little bit of wiggle around the tail at the beginning because of some of the overlap we did there. And there is a little bit of wiggle as it comes out of the building as well. Right there. You can see that the building gets a little bit, some particles disappear. I'm basically just repeating the process I did on the edge of Alara's hair 3 or 4 times to fix each one of those errors. And then this footage would be done. And that's how it goes. Like, I mean, just from a small little thumbnail for you guys in a streaming video footage from far away, this is going to be probably good enough. I would say that there is someone on the Twitch chat. First chatter on the Twitch chat said and I have no idea when they said it. So thank you for, I guess, agreeing with me. I don't know. But it says, Legal Beagle says, does Cartoon Network count as Hollywood production? No insult intended, just asking if there's a difference between movie versus TV. I mean, Hollywood makes everything when it comes to animation, video, whatnot. It's more along the lines of saying, like, when people assume, I guess they assume live action, but everything's made. It doesn't matter, stop motion, whatever. It's all considered Hollywood production. It's just the city where it's made. Anything within the TMZ is Hollywood. But at this point, I think this is pretty decent. Like we've already made a good amount of progress, but we need to fix that tail in order for me to like not be too upset with myself at the end of this because I'm not going to fix every detail, but I want to make sure we at least get rid of this flicker because that's from a different problem. That comes because when we move the mask, the plate that we had, so this one right here. Oops, no, it's which one is it? Static clouds plate. Yes. Um, is it this one? It's whichever one we moved. So let's see. It's the bird mask. That's right. You can see with the bird mask, there is a hard line because the actual footage itself cuts off at a point here. So if I say change the blending mode on this so you guys can see it, let's do difference. Or normal, I guess? No, it should be difference. And then I'll drag this up here so you guys can see it. Yeah, you can see that there is a hard line that is because we've repositioned this that far. We can actually measure it here. This is the same distance that's here because it's moving to the right through this footage. So let me put that back and then set this to normal. And in order to fix this, we just grab another frame like we did earlier. Like this one right here is perfect. And if we really didn't want to, if say like this is the product of multiple nested shapes, which it is, we have a static plate right here that's creating this. The easiest way to take advantage of all the hard work we did and not have to redo things is just to select every layer, holding Shift, Control Shift C to create a new pre-comp. This is what we did earlier in order to make all the effects that we did one layer. It's essentially how you do grouping in After Effects. So the group function in Photoshop, this is how we group things in video. So we pre-comp this, and now it's only one layer, okay? That means that I can now duplicate this pre-comp and do the exact same thing we did with the hair on this side, but now it's going to use all of the footage as the reference or as the footage to edit. So we can now do Control Alt T to create a time remap of this composition. Make that a keyframe like we did before, and now this is going to be just the static image, but it's going to now be of everything that we did. So that means that I can turn this off. I can find the problematic area. First, actually, I'll first mask it because I already know that it's here. I'm going to first mask it, and then I'm going to see, okay, so it's actually way up here. It's not nearly as big as I thought it was. So we'll just bring this up to here. Bring that to here. Okay. I'll definitely change the mask color because orange on orange is awful. All right, there you go. And all thing I'm going to do is I'm going to animate this mask to cover up the artifact again. And then this should be done. So let's do this one here. I'll come in a little tighter because we can. Like so. Okay. Oh, there it is there. Oh, yeah, there's a little bit up here, so we got to make this. But down here, so let's do that. And I'm animating linearly. Damn it. No, hold on. There we go. There we go. That's what I want. Okay, let's go to the end here. Like that. Drag this down, midpoint. There we go. Okay, we have now encapsulated the error. Okay, but because this is a pre-comp, we just turn this back on and then apply a feather to it. Okay. And what we need to do is we probably need to animate this frame to be with the tail. You can see the tail moves a little bit. And after this point here, I believe it's static, right? So we basically need to apply that difference once again. And it's going to be mostly black there. Let's find out where it is black. Yeah, that's the most there. So now what we can do is we can go to... We just have to unnest this, nest this back, and then we get the transform tools again, turn on position, scale, rotation, and just realign the tail. So, because the tail slightly pitches in angle. See, you see how it's changing angle here? So we just need to follow that here. Okay. And this may work, it may not. It just depends on how much we really need, how much clouds are going to overlap this. But let's just turn it back on. Difference, normal. You can see that there's a little bit of cloud that moves that we don't want it to move because it's going to look really weird. See, the tail looks like it's moving, like the cloud's moving with her tail here. So we need to find where, so yeah, we just need to tighten up this mask a lot. So let's add a second mask to tighten it up. Instead of tweaking this mask, let's make another one that the only thing this mask is going to do is it's going to remove things from this. So like we'll just draw another mask like this. That's a little bit tight. And then we'll hit subtract instead of add. Okay. And now it's we can even change the feather to be different between these two masks. So this feather on this one's 18. Let's make this a much tighter mask. So let's make it more like 4 or 5. Okay. And then we have a little bit of a cleaner mask, but we get a little bit of the artifact back in. So then we could go even farther and add a third mask just for this moment. Just for this moment here. Boom. And we will again make this a very tight mask on the feather. So something like 5. Okay. But the thing is that it's only for one frame that this thing shows up, right? So that means we need to turn on mask path. We need to use thumb up to go to the next frame and find out where that air is a little bit. We're going to do a little bit of linear animation here to get this done, but we mostly need this mask to disappear eventually. So we just come into here and keep drawing that up a bit, like so. And the idea here is you're balancing the two. You're balancing the wider feather that you have for the overall, added mask here, but then you're refining it with additional masks moving forward. So we just kind of come into here and find wherever that needs to be refined. And then as soon as you've done that, because this is going to add a lot of like static area here, you can even add a keyframe and then just move it off of, oops, wrong one. This one here. There you go. If you don't need it anymore, you can just go to the next frame and then grab that position and just shift it off of it's this one here. My bad. Keyframe. And then just boop, put that off and it will animate, but then you can go to the next frame like that and bring it back and it will be much more clicky, just basically turn off. So yeah, anyway, the point is of this is that we can come in and with layered masks, we can fix just about any problem in the footage. It will need to get refined. There's still a little bit of airiness here, probably because I need to drag this up a little bit. And you can see that as soon as I start to make these changes, it's going to start getting clicky because I'm not allowing for any more keyframes. Everything is just being one frame at a time. So you can see that dot pops up here. So now I need to bring this up. Boom. There you go. There's a little bit up here I have to fix. There we go. And there is a little bit of static here that now we can get rid of because I don't think we need this anymore. So let's try this. Get rid of this keyframe. Oop, no, I need to keep that keyframe. Yeah, so we're basically just going in here and finessing these little boxes until everything is covered up or showing through that we want. So I've done it twice now, guys. I think this is pretty good to end it here, but you notice how the tail is like, it adds a little bit of that end there. That means that we've left footage that's too long. And that makes sense because I left the composition in full here. So let's delete it after the point we don't need it anymore. So let's see. That would be this frame right here. Get rid of it. Ba-boom. And now we have a nested composition where everything that we affected is actually using the previous work that we've done to make that adjustment. So there's still plenty of parts that kind of flicker and click a little bit, but this is dramatic. For the goal of I need to kill the bird, this is pretty damn solid so far. So I'm glad that we have gotten this far with it. I'm curious to hear from you guys. If there's any questions or anything, I'm gonna take a little break to sip this coffee here. But I'm going to open up the April Fools project next and let you guys take a look at that. I'm glad you liked it, Alistair. That's awesome. I'm glad we started covering stuff that would be very useful for you. I think it would be very useful to get into particularly masks and blending modes. That really does a number. But let me take a
There's
quick break from talking.
yeah, there's a not sure if it's we can pin it for another masterclass, but Alistair also had questions having to do with recoloring masks, and I don't know what you're planning into planning on getting into next, but that was the general next question in terms of how to apply masks to recolor and retexture.
Sure, sure. That's actually a pretty easy thing for me to answer right off the bat. So if you look at the masks themselves, they also have blending modes, similar to what is it? Similar to the Photoshop ones. They're just not nearly as big because they literally don't work. Certain blending modes will simply doesn't make sense as masks because of the way that it interferes with light. So or contrasting colors and stuff like that. So if we look at add here, we also have lighten, darken, difference, intersect, and it applies the same rules as those blending modes, but it only will affect the masks themselves. So that's the advanced side of it. But if we do a color correction on just one of these, it's going to be very obvious because we're relying on the fact that the footage is all the same footage to make this work. If I were to do a color correction on the like complete canvas, you could see what I'm talking about. Let's do a color balance. Okay. We'll grab that color balance and drag it to the bottom layer here. And now I can just, like in Photoshop, I can color balance like normal, but they're all sliders that you can animate, right? So let's say we wanted this to change in tone, color-wise. It's not going to affect what I changed here. I'll apply that after this. But let's turn on all of these. Okay. And then I'll go to the end of the footage and I'll just ramp a bunch of random ones. Okay. Now that these are all randomly ramped, they are going to transition from that color to this color. Okay. And color balancing is how you create dynamic color profiles. It's how I made uh, the what is it? One at least a couple of the Spellbroke panels as I came through and I added colors that didn't exist because the reality is that most of the stuff that we generate has a primary color that dominates the results. The primary color in this result is orange, right? If I change the color balance to only have, say, like the shadows or the midtones be a different color, look how much more rich that looks. Like in terms of it looks better as a sky, first off, to take the low tones and turn them blue. It makes it look a little more like it's a night shot. As it almost looks like day for night as opposed to anything else. But to me, this is way prettier of a color than this, right? It's like it just looks more like we have a little more life in Alara too because of that. Um, but because we've ramped that up, the segment that we animated is not color. It's not. It has not been color corrected. So to fix that, we just grab this color effect, copy it, and then go to the layer that it's not on and just paste it, and that fixes it because everything is going to be aligned up with the keyframes. So, yeah, that's it in a nutshell when it comes to color correcting with masks. I really like color balance in order to fix things when I need to, but there's also color balance high HLS. It basically it's how you do it more as a slider with hold on, let me do this on the correct layer here. This color balancing tool, the only difference is that it uses a hue slider instead of individual highs and lows. This is only good if you are dramatically changing the color for a specific reason. Like say like, oh the this is a underwater scene, so we need everything blue to be in some kind of balanced color palette, and then we could change these individually. I don't like HLS. It doesn't really do what I want it to do 90% of the time. It's more like just a hue slider. But color balance I use all the damn time, so don't get confused between these two. Otherwise, we're gonna get into the April Fool's things next. Um, we had 4 people watching on Twitch there for a minute, so that was awesome. Like there's always like so many people that are like thousands and thousands of viewers. Whatever. I appreciate everybody that sits here and wants to consume what I do. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Everything that we're doing here actually is going to end up on the Victor Gnarly YouTube channel as well. So anything you missed, you can catch it there. Okay. So I'm going to take another quick breather here, and
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, where can I ask question of this subject when you have time, if you
Sure.
have time?
You can ask it here in the chat. So you notice that there is a chat button next to After Effects Masterclass. You can chat there, or you can just use the text chat, and I'll catch it after the stream.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, and feel free if anyone's got any questions right now. Feel free to ask it. You can hop on mic, ask those questions. More than welcome to. I'm just gonna take a quick little breather here while I listen to y'all.
Um, yeah, so basically, what you can suggest me? I was starting to reading your book about the characters and so on, about making some character lore, and I found that there's a restriction in Midjourney, and after this, I just turned my focus on Comfy UI. So, how you think? Do you have the more control and more freedom to make some comic book based on Comfy UI? And is there any guide of it or something?
Yeah. So we actually have a couple of users that are really, really into Stable Diffusion and use Comfy UI and other like we're agnostic here in terms of what AI you use. You're more than welcome to use whatever you want here. Midjourney is just the one that is the most accessible for Discord for people here, um, as well as the work that we do every Friday streaming there. But there's a couple users who are familiar. I believe I Troll for You is the moderator who's the most familiar with that. There isn't a step by step, but at least not posted yet or anything like that. The I would say that in order to create uh, continuity of your characters using that, I would rely on one of them to tell you, just because I don't have the personal experience with Comfy UI to say that. But you can do the exact same thing I'm doing here with any footage that you would make or any image that you would generate with any.
To be honest, Victor, the most bad thing in Comfy UI, which not Comfy, but in Midjourney, which I found out, but they have some silly restrictions. I mean,
Oh, that moderation, yeah, with
retexturing or
the AI moderation
yeah,
stuff. Yeah, no, no, and I fully agree with
it's
you.
awful,
In a
really
perfect world, I
awful.
would have that stuff turned off too. Um, the reality is though, right, is that we have a huge number of tools available to us, and it is one of those things where like Midjourney is trying to solve a particular use case in the regards of like being more accessible, being more uh, they eventually want to have it be that like you could have Midjourney in an educational environment because it's not going to just show you random tits. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that those goals don't align with the goals of Stable Diffusion or really even like Grok or some of the other LLMs that are out there. So it just comes down to this factor of picking the one that makes sense for you. The reason why Midjourney makes sense for me is because I don't really push it that much, but the editor tool is the moderation on it is way too strict right now. I hope to see that change, but for the meantime, yeah, Civet UI has guides for you doing character continuity with Comfy. that's the best I can give you outside of just asking our server for anyone for help. Like Bad CRC, who's hanging out in the chat here but is temporarily muted because his mic was blowing up. CRC
Yeah, he's
just
helping me often. He's a really great guy.
yeah, he is. And I think that he would also be a good resource for that. So definitely just ask around, man. I'm sure that someone's going to respond to you.
Yeah, my recommendation is just post a question in the text chat, and there are people who are not here right now who I'm sure would love to talk with you further.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. So at this point, I am going to save this so that Alara or anyone else who wants to change things up is welcome to continue this project or learn directly from it by opening it up. I will save it as a legacy file so that anyone that's working with an older version of After Effects can also open it up. And you do that, by the way, by just going to Save As and then save a copy as 23x. So I'm going to save that out here, desktop, and then call it Kill the Bird. Okay. And I will then drag that to our Discord channel so that you guys have it too. So let's put that in the help guide, I guess. No, maybe not the help guide. Let's put it. Where's a good spot to put that kind of stuff? You know what? I'm just gonna put it in the text chat here, and then if there's another channel or place I can put it in later, I'll put it there. But for now, this works. Let me go to my desktop here. There's Kill the Bird. And I'm actually going to rename it Alara Kills the Bird. Even though she didn't. Rename. And rename. There we go. Okay, and now I will drag that on top of this. And I also need to include the footage, and I won't be doing the collective thing here because it's not really necessary, but also because it's going to teach you guys how to relink things in After Effects really quick. It's just a little pop-up window. It's going to say, "Hey, I can't find the footage. Can you tell me where the footage is?" And you're just going to point at wherever you save the footage as well. So let me grab that download here. In fact, where does that stuff actually download? I don't know where I don't know where Discord downloads things onto my computer. So let me find that really quick. And it's probably a mystery folder with all sorts of stuff that I don't know where it is. Let's see, where did that go? In fact, you know what I'll do? I'll just try to re-download it, and then that'll tell me where it is. Okay, all right, it's in my damn invoices folder. Why? Let's see here. Doom. Why? So Alara's footage of her walking with the bird is next to my taxes. Okay. Is it this footage? Nope. Date. There we go. There we go. Got it. Boom. And submit. Sweet. And I see from Legal Beagle is you have your. I didn't actually look at this footage yet of your swordsman here. Cool. I'm just taking a quick peek at it.
Rhapsody was playing with it at one point and just did some ramp ups and things. I wanted to make sure you had something.
Mm-hmm.
But Alistair's color correction was above Alara.
Okay. Got it. What's your hourly rate, Vic? It's too damn expensive. The last saved directory. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah, I know it's the last saved directory. I just didn't know what directory it was. Okay. All right, so now I'm just going to take a second to open up the April Fool's project. It's going to take a second to load up because it is nearly a gig. Of course, my After Effects crashes like the moment I close it. Okay, good. At least it didn't happen during it. That's good. Adobe Premiere crashes whenever there's something wrong on your computer. It's going to be the most upsetting because it'll render footage for 40 minutes and then say, "Oops, something went wrong." But After Effects, you do the right thing wrong and it just crashes instantly. But what we're gonna do is here's stop motion here. Okay. All right, so I have the Sage project here. For anyone that is watching on stream that has not seen this and may want to watch the footage first, I'm going to just play it here for you guys outside of After Effects so that you guys can see it. Because if I play it in After Effects, it might chug a little bit. Not much, but it might. So I'm just going to load it up on YouTube here and put it on the screen so that you guys can first see what the final product of this is. And if you haven't seen this with sound, it should play sound. I did an entire audio layer on this footage. So let's first grab that Victor Gnarly on YouTube. And then I will find the video here. Okay. And bring it down to here. There we go. Okay. Let's watch this really quick. It's 27 seconds. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's my little gag there.
So there was no sound for that.
Oh yeah. That's all good. You guys, thank you for linking
Yep.
it. I appreciate it. I also appreciate telling me that because I don't really know what transmits or what doesn't. I know that transmitted over Twitch. It will not transmit over Discord. Yay for audio. Virtual cable routing is a nightmare for me. Okay. So what I mostly wanted to show with this is that in this footage, we have a bunch of live, like real life pictures, as well as drawings that my partner and I made, that we cut up into little paper dolls and then moved around a Xerox machine at my local library. There's no generative element to any of this. It has a couple of digital fixes like cleanups. I positioned the speech bubbles digitally, but the goal was to do as little digital as possible with this because that was the theme for April Fools was no digital on r-comics on Reddit. So the only thing I did was I recorded random footage of different things happening at the library, and then took stills to basically accomplish her moving around. I didn't actually know where I was going with this at first. I just kind of was playing around with little paper dolls at the library, which plenty of people gave me weird looks at me for doing. But I eventually went back the next day and went, is there any chance that you have a paper shredder? Is there any chance? Because I didn't even know that I was going to do this, really, that she was going to jump off like, I knew she was going to jump off in order to maybe run across the floor or whatever, but I didn't know. I just realized that, oh, no, she needs to fall in the paper shredder because I already had it in the script that she's asking for it. So I was like, this is perfect. The slow-mo footage of her falling is literally me running 8 times slow-mo on my phone and just hoping that she gets a clean fall. This was I threw her down from this position 8 or 9 times, and this was the only piece of footage where you could see her on the front of the paper as she falls. So it took 8 takes to get this stupid little fall to come through. So now that you guys have seen the footage, let's see what I did in After Effects to make this happen. Let's get rid of this. Well, thanks for coming, Ghost. I appreciate you stopping by. Okay, so at this point, we're gonna look at what we did here. I don't need to show you guys the footage in full like this. I'm gonna actually shrink this down quite heavily. So the footage is still playing. It's just that little sliver that's on the top there, okay? Because I really need to show you guys everything else that went into here in order to kind of sell this. So let me first collapse all of these because some of them are open, like here. So let me collapse these. Boop, 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 and boop, and boop. Okay. This project is a total of 62 layers. Those 62 layers are split between audio, video, and pictures. And some of those pictures are edited in Photoshop. Okay. So you can see there are complete Photoshop files inside of here that at any time I can actually say right click, reveal in either Explorer or the layer source in the project, so on and so forth. So if say I want to say explore or say reveal layer source in project, it's just going to highlight where it is inside of this composition window up here, this project folder here. So let's see, right click, reveal a layer source in project. There you go. Now I see that it's here. I can just double click on this and see what that is. It is the where's the shredder speech bubble. Okay. And now I can just right click this and say edit original, I believe. Let's see, where is it? Reveal. Yeah, okay, we'll do it this way. We'll say reveal in Explorer. That'll open up in my file browser here, and I'll find the original file because it shows me where it is. I can now double click on this, and we can look at what this one layer is. And you can see that it's just the speech bubble isolated from a picture. So if I open up that picture by going, because these are all smart objects, so I can just edit contents. You can see that I did a couple of corrections in terms of the texture on the speech bubble itself. But if I now say make this a smart object and edit this inside of here, you can see what I did. I had just the blank speech bubble and then I overlaid the text on top of it. But if we now disable this layer mask, that's the photo. Like that's me cropping in the photo. So if I now crop out, you can see the rest of the drawing from me. So you can see there's my thumb. There is the little ink markers because I just borrowed or just took a page from a used piece of paper because I'm just that frugal. And so I drew these and then took a picture with my phone and then isolated to just one speech bubble and then nested the text on top of that, made sure that it was a nice clean, mask around this speech bubble. And that's it. I did a little bit of color correction in order to make it a bit brighter. And now we have the speech bubble dragged and dropped inside of... part of my finger. I'm totally doxxed now. Yeah. No, you got me. You got me. What is it? I'm gonna get canceled now. By a bunch of anti-AI users because I showed my thumb on stream. If anything, you guys can just make fun of like how badly my nails are done. But let's do this. Let's do this. Okay. So the only thing I showed you guys here was that one Photoshop file. It is where is it here? Speech bubble. Boom. Should be where's the shredder? Right there. It's this speech bubble right here, and you could see that it is right here on my it's the 30th layer of 62. And the idea, I know it sounds like a lot to be like, oh, it's 62 layers, but a lot of it's audio nesting, so that happened pretty quickly. But it's also just being done as needed. So like if I start off with a shot, so like I started with this one here at the beginning of the footage. I just had a picture of the printout. Now I will say I actually fudged another thing with this video. This is not the printer tray. This is not the Xerox printer tray. In fact, this is the paper insert tray where you can like throw in like envelopes and other odd shaped paper that's not in the storage bin for the Xerox machine. And I digitally removed the insert paper sign that's here. I needed to do that because otherwise it would be very obvious that this is not the printer tray. So little teeny tweaks were done, but overall it's very much live action in the sense that I really only edited what was necessary. And then when you look at the actual animation, what I'm doing here is I'm actually just switching to different frames. Like you see here, this is tray empty PNG2 and tray empty PNGB. The only two difference between these two images here is Sage's position in the picture. So the only thing I did was just copy Sage, drag it over, and make a new file in order to animate her here. I did draw a little bit underneath her lip right there, like just to make it so she's talking, right? And otherwise it's just a bunch of assets put into place. So like with this here, I took a picture of Sage walking up here, and then this is actually a different picture, but I overlaid it so that it's the same shot, so it looks like it's a stop motion. If we look at the original picture, let's see where that is. I might not have it available. I might have already edited it. Yeah, I did. Okay, that's okay. Because I could just turn this off. You can see that it's just a different image that I did an edit of where she's positioned in it. So each one of these are just timed to about the average of what I would say is a frame with stop motion, which is anywhere between like, I would say 3 to 8 frames you can get away with. And so let's see here. I want to see what else I did here. Yes. Okay. So for this footage here, where she is wobbling around like the screaming of the that kind of thing, that is actually just a static image. It's just a picture. And if I open up that picture, yes, this one here, this is the picture. It was the wrong shot. I was upset with myself because I came home and I realized that she is standing on the wrong side of the Xerox machine. And so, and she's also holding the paper when she's not able to actually hold the paper as a piece of paper. So I cropped it to cut it like about here, like something like that. And then I used an effect called wiggle position in order to make her shake around like that. Right? So you can see that as she shakes around, wiggle, wiggle. Yes, wiggle, wiggle. In fact, that's actually why I say wiggle, wiggle all the time, is because Wiggler is a After Effects tool. So we would back at Robot, we'd be like wiggle, 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 wiggle whenever we were doing that. So yeah, that's where that comes from. But you can find wiggle position really, really easily. And again, this is why I say mess with the presets. Do not feel ashamed about using them because they're going to do 90% of the work for you in order to give you all your effects that you can move. So, like, okay, let's try this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to nest these two effects, and we can actually turn them off. So let's do that. Boop, boop, and now they're turned off. There is no more wiggle transform that's going to happen. So it's just a static image. Okay, now I'm going to go to Effects and Preset, and I'm going to write wiggle. And you can see there's actually a couple different kinds of wiggle. Okay, and the most dramatic is wiggle gelatin because it actually warps and distorts your image, similar to like how when I move around with my VTuber here, it's actually warping and distorting the shape. All the other ones will warp and distort only one factor, like shearing or scale or whatever. But gelatin's the one that tends to be the one that everyone uses when they want to make something look like they're drunk. So let's do this. And now look what it does. Wow, wow, wow. So if you want to make someone wobble-eyed or otherwise like look like they're looking through a Coke bottle lens, right? Okay, that's a dated reference. If you're just looking through like a really odd wide-angle lens and you're just kind of moving it around, wiggle gelatin will accomplish that goal of making something look drunk. Or at least underwater. And so if we turn off that, and now we go to Wiggle Rama, which I see that got brought up by Legal Beagle here. Wiggle-Rama is insanity mode when it comes to this stuff because it really doesn't make a ton of sense, honestly. Wiggle-Rama is one of the legacy versions of Wiggle, but it does all of these things and largely at random. So if I now scale up the speed of Wiggle-Rama, it adds a motion blur to it too. So let's go ahead and isolate to just these two, this single shot, something like this. And I can just now repeat that. And Wiggle-Rama is going to do all of those things at the same time with adjustments that you can make, but notice all the red that's here. That's because Wiggle-Rama is actually controlling the transform tool, while with this one here, the wiggle position is only controlling the single position here. So you can use the expressions to see what it affects. So Wiggle-Rama, by comparison to wiggle position, is going to affect the anchor points, the positions, the height, the scale, and the rotation all at once. So if you want to basically screw in it with any of those things, you're going to have to go into the advanced expression editor, and I am not getting into that today. But it gives you so many options of what you can do with just wiggling, with just wiggle. That's the one thing we're talking about, is just wiggling. So now that that's there, we can make adjustments to the wiggle as needed, from the speed or the amount of pixels that gets moved, that kind of thing. All of that's just sliders now, so it's a lot easier. Let's get rid of that. Okay, turn this back on, and now our footage is back to how it was. Let's keep going and take a look at some of this. So with this one here, it was actually kind of funny. I didn't actually have this image of Sage's face changed. So what I did is I did a digital cutout. I pretended like I cut this out of paper. Okay. And the way that I did that was I took the image of Sage screaming from here, right? I cut out digitally the face, and then I applied a 3D shadow to the back side of the paper to make it look like I glued it or used masking tape in order to put it into position. This is the biggest cheat that I did in the entire thing, honestly. Just because like I am really trying to fool you that I did that labor with this. But it is the only edit that I would say is dramatic enough to disqualify it as a non-digital animation. But I thought this was necessary in order to really sell this, and I really didn't feel like going back to the library just to shoot this one freaking picture. So that's that. Let's see here. With the paper shredder scene, I think yes. So there's something to note here as well, which is in the paper shredder drop, because I am using a slow motion setting on my phone, that means that the flicker from the fluorescent lights was visible in my video. If I now isolate this so you guys can see it without me cropping things, like you can see I put a mask that cuts up half the frame, and that mask is static. There's this footage doesn't move at all. But if I now go to the other side here, this is the raw footage that is just underneath that. Watch what happens with the room itself in this shot here. Look at all that flicker. If I now zoom into here and I make it really obvious, it could give you a seizure if you zoom in too close. So just a heads up. But if I now hit play on this, look at the flickering that's happening on the bottom there. That's actually because it's the fluorescent lights dimming and brightening, and because it's in slow-mo, it's capturing that. Our eyes wouldn't normally see that. So, yeah, I'm definitely... That's one thing that I would not allow to be in the final product of what I was doing. So I simply did a hold frame on the first frame, and I locked the right side of the canvas. So by the time we composite that all together, the right side doesn't flicker, but there is a very, very, very minor amount of flicker on the top left of the frame that I said, screw it, I don't care. It's right here. It's just behind the recycling machine, the recycling tray. You can see that it just slightly flickers. Doesn't matter. This is one of those things where, again, I'm like, I know what my audience is. I know they're not going to care about that flicker. So if this was for television, I would have spent an hour fixing this, but I didn't. Okay. So that's another example of isolating and masking the frame in order to create a cleaner image. All right, let's see what else we got here. That's just a still picture. I didn't do anything to this. This one is also just me throwing in the speech bubble, the White House, and where I am. And I had originally an opening that revealed the White House that was kind of in the style of like Family Matters, right, with the text on the top, and it like tracks with the White House. But I felt like it was a spoiler for the joke of it being in the White House, so I got rid of it. Okay, let's see here. After Effects stuff. This here was just cycling between two pictures, not a big deal there. But let's get into audio really quick, because I feel like this is going to be where we kind of summarize this. The audio portion is all taken from the from Film Cow's audio library. And normally you'd be mixing the audio. You would be cleaning up and blending the audio with the white noise of whatever your shot is or whatever you're working on. I didn't do that at all, mostly because I know that this is just something for the internet that 90% of the people are just going to watch this on their phones. But what I did here is just drag and drop the audio, just like video clips. And I aligned them based on what's happening in the scene. So you could see that there's paper handling, paper handled, paper crunch, paper ripping, paper picked up 5. I just had to make sure that each one of these audio files were unique, and then it would work. I did have to move a couple of them around in order to replicate her movements here. So like outside of the screaming one, which is the most obvious in terms of the change in audio. An example here is like when she's walking up here, it goes tick, tick, tick. That is a different audio that I switched out to one that's a little longer. So it sounds like she almost has her feet shifting on the ground. And then whenever I change shots to make it a little richer, to make it a little nicer, I also used plastic drawer opening sounds in order to make it so that it has just a little more flavor to when we cut to see the White House, when we cut to see the paperwork on the ground. That's all just me adding a little bit extra to the scene with audio, and that to me finishes the shot. It does so much work for just the right audio in the right place can cover up bad video. It's really great. Highly recommend that. Sound design is more important than video for movies and entertainment in general. It really is. It's more important than anything you're looking at. Okay, so there you go. That's how I made this. I'm curious to see if you guys what you all thought of this little class here. I wanted to give at least a demo of the April Fool's thing. I knew that this was going to be a massive distraction if I did it during the Friday stream, especially with the version 7 release. So I'm doing it here. Is there any questions?
Well, I'm really grateful for this. This has been a lot of fun, especially since I downloaded After Effects before the stream. I didn't even have it on my computer at first. I thought I did, but I will definitely be playing with it now.
Awesome.
But yeah, this was it, and knowing masks, I can now see why masks matter in Photoshop and transferring over here.
Oh yeah, especially since we're working with vectors, right? Where we're drawing dots in space and then drawing lines to, like, the lines are drawn in between those dots. It just helps speed up the whole masking process, not being rasterized. But the Roto tool is just so clutch. Like, being able to instantly trace out Alara from the shot is awesome. We didn't even have that tool when I worked at Robot, so I was like, I know this new tool exists, and it's new for me, but it's existed in After Effects for like, I don't know, 7 years. But it's new to me, so I was like, I get to play with this one too. Alistair said, I do not have After Effects, but we'll be learning the fundamentals to apply to DVR and Fusion, which is comparable workflow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're designed off of After Effects. I believe DVR. Or I believe one of those is at least. But it's not a node-based editor, which I know that a lot of people are probably more familiar with now than they were back in the day. I remember when Nuke came out and they were like, all right, here's the node-based editor, and we were like, what the hell is this? Like but let's see, node-based is Fusion. Okay. So it is one of those things where like it's very much like Nuke then. Yeah, it's probably the same company as Nuke, honestly. I think I would have to look at who owns what nowadays. But there you go, guys. I hope that's helpful to folks that are familiar or at least own After Effects. You can immediately get into this, but if not, the fundamentals are there. So, all right, I am going to get some dinner in me because it's a little early, but I'm starving. I was supposed to get a sandwich earlier today, and I totally skipped out on doing that. So, thank you guys so much for watching.